Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to the Midlife Revolution. I'm your host, Megan Connor, and today I am joined by Jean Judson and Randy Watts. Jean and Randy, thanks so much for being here today.
It's great to be on.
Always a pleasure.
Well, I invited Jean and Randy to come on the channel today to do a recap of the sentencing phase of the final Lori Vallow Daybell trial, because I did not want to do it by myself. It felt like too much of a big task. And so I really appreciate you guys coming on and offering your commentary and your thoughts as we unpack the final chapter in the inglorious saga of what I will refer to now as the worst lawyer in history. I will refer to her as the dumbest defendant ever. Oh, illegally blonde.
Illegally blonde.
I like that.
So I was at the sentencing. I was present there live. I wanted to be there. I felt like it was really important to be there for the final deal. And I also wanted to be there to support my new chosen family and some of the people that I've gotten to know over the course of this trial. It's been absolutely amazing, the people who have come out of the woodwork and all of the wonderful podcasters and news people that I've met over this whole thing who've been super supportive. And I also mentioned on my little recap that I thought it's just very heartwarming to me to be accepted by so many of Charles's family and Tammy's family as well, because they didn't have to talk to me. They didn't have to be nice to me, even being related to the defendant, but I've been really grateful for that.
Well, you know that show, Everybody Loves Raymond? You can actually say Everybody Loves Megan, too. Because,
well, that is definitely not true.
it's pretty close, because no matter what side they're on, everybody loves Megan. Not everybody loves Jean. I have to add that in.
Somebody does, though. Somewhere.
At least one person does, and that's what's important. Yeah, so I definitely have some people who don't love me, and that is okay. I am not for everyone. And there was a time in my life when that really would have bothered me, but guess what? Not anymore.
Oh, no, I just said, who cares?
Who cares?
Who cares if someone doesn't love you? Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. They're missing out if they don't. So there's that. So this was last Friday, the 25th of July. And Kay pointed out in her victim impact statement that it was the anniversary of the day that JJ's adoption was final. And for those of you who don't know the story behind how Charles and Lori came to adopt JJ, JJ is actually Kay's grandson. Her son had this baby with his girlfriend, and they were unable to raise the baby because they were both struggling with addiction. And so Kay and Larry took the baby in, but they were, getting on in years. And eventually the idea came up that Lori and Charles already had Colby and Tylie, and that maybe Lori and Charles could provide a little bit more of a family environment for JJ. And so Lori and Charles agreed to adopt him and raise him as their own child. So it's a little complicated, but Charles is actually JJ's uncle, but he adopted JJ, so he's actually JJ's father, JJ's adoptive father. Yeah, he absolutely loved JJ. And that was one of the things I loved about Nancy Jo testifying, because she really helped us understand how much Charles loved JJ and how he was so excited to spend time with him. And that was his main primary focus. And it was everything he was excited about.
I think that was a touching statement that JJ's biological dad gave.
It was just beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just beautiful. So we'll go through these statements one by one. The first to speak was Colby Ryan. Colby is the only child of Lori's that is living. His biological father was Joe Ryan, but he always unhesitatingly calls Charles his dad. And he said some lovely things about Charles pretty well, but I didn't take notes during the sentencing because I really wanted to focus on really paying close attention to what everybody was saying and experiencing it. And so I'll just say, Jerry Vallow and Melanie Vallow were so kind. They gave me a ride to the courthouse, and so we walked together. I was able to go into the family room, and I want to make sure that I'm very precisely accurate about this. I came into the courtroom, and they put me, to go sit in the front row, and at the end of the row was a person, and then I thought that person would probably want to sit next to Kay, because that's how we were in Charles's trial. But then I looked over and noticed that Kay was in the witness box. And so I went ahead and took that seat right next to this other person. And then there was some shuffling that went around, and I heard, voices behind me. And I thought I heard Nancy Jo say something like, not on the front row. And so the person that was sitting next to me gave up her chair for Nancy Jo. And then they put another chair on the end of the aisle. So Nancy Jo was sitting right next to me, and she said, I didn't want to sit in the front row. But I was so grateful to have Nancy Jo there. She is just an absolutely wonderful person. She was so kind to me. She could tell when I was getting upset, and she would just rest her hand on my knee. And it really helped to calm my nervous system. And she was just so kind. And I just love her. I did an episode about her testimony on my channel because I thought she handled Lori just brilliantly. That's exactly the way we should all handle someone who is trying to manipulate us or be controlling or rude or nasty to us. So I just wanted to say that I really appreciated her being there, and she was very kind. And I'm not sure who it was that was sitting to the right of me, but Aunt Vicky was a couple people down from me, and I knew that Rex and Lisa, his wife, were over off to the side as well. And other than that, I'm not really sure who else was exactly around me. But I know that my cousin Summer was there, and she was on the other side of the courtroom, sitting directly behind the defendant. So it was a little bit jarring to see her. I did not expect to see her. So
that begs the question, Megan, and I've wondered this through each trial you've gone to. Did you ever make eye contact with Lori? Did you two ever meet eye to eye? And what was her response seeing you there?
I did, actually. And it was, for Charles's trial, I was there for jury selection. I was there, every day that I could be. I think I only missed one day. I went home on the weekends. But the very first day when the proceedings were over, we were all gathering our stuff to leave, and she was gathering her stuff to leave. And I wanted to make eye contact with her because I wanted her to know that I was there. The first time that we made eye contact, she kind of just looked past me, like she didn't really recognize that it was me. The second time we made eye contact, she definitely knew it was me. And I did not change the expression on my face at all. So
did she acknowledge you?
I hope that I knew that she recognized me. I don't think she smiled, but I wanted to keep my face blank because I have nothing for her. And I also wanted her to know I wasn't there to support her. And so I hope that I communicated that by not changing my facial expression. I do happen to sometimes have an RBF. So, and then
it wasn't
after
you
that
Lori winked at on the way out.
It was not me that she winked at. In fact, I didn't even look at her as she was leaving because I was so stunned at what was said. And we'll get to that for sure. But yeah, after that, I really did not make eye contact with her much at all. I did during the sentencing. At one point, I happened to look over while she was bent over backwards, flirting with her investigator. And she definitely met eyes with me. But I just immediately looked away because I said this on my channel. I don't hate her. I don't love her. I nothing her. I have zero feelings for her whatsoever. Just my mind is
don't even sense that she's dark.
Yeah, yes, I do get that sense because I really can feel it. I can feel it in the courtroom.
When Gina and I were watching, one thing that we noticed is that when we would get little glimpses of her face, I wish we could have seen her face the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
But there was absolutely no remorse whatsoever.
Right.
After all the things that were, all these heart-wrenching testimonials of these people. She didn't, it's like there's no remorse whatsoever. And she
Right.
still maintains that she did the right thing.
Yes, and I will say that when I was speaking with Jerry, we were talking about what he might say, a long time ago. And I said, whatever you say, don't go into it thinking that you're going to have any impact on Lori at all, because nothing you say is going to penetrate her delusion. So whatever you say, make sure that it's what you want to say for yourself and for Charles. And I thought he did an absolutely fabulous job. He, at that time back then, he really wanted to just let loose and say whatever he wanted to say. If the judge throws me out, he throws me out. But then I think he spoke with the prosecutor and learned the rules of what he could say. And I thought he did a fabulous job as well. So I'd like to go ahead and play Colby's statement. And I want to note that Colby has been very ill. He suffered a little mini stroke just a few days before the sentencing, and then went home and then began to have some similar symptoms and had to return to the hospital. And they found out that he has a case of fungal meningitis caused by valley fever. And it's really very serious, and especially for such a young person, it's very concerning. So my heart goes out to him and his small family. They do have a GoFundMe set up to help him pay his medical expenses because he recently went to podcasting full time. And so I'm not really sure what his financial situation is, but I know how scary it is to do that because I did it almost exactly 1 year ago, and it's never easy. So I just want to mention that. And I think that he is back home now, and I think he's doing better. But I just want everyone to, have your whatever sort of good energy you send into the universe, whether it's via prayers or just your good wishes or whatever. And I will put his PO box in the description as well, so that anyone who wants to send him a card or anything, well wishes, can do that.
My name is Colby Ryan. I'm the son of Charles Vallow, the brother of Tylie Ryan and JJ Vallow. I'm here to tell you what I've lost. Not only are my father, sister, and brother gone, but so is my mother. Starting 6 years ago, the horror began. During the middle of my workday, I was alerted that my father had passed away from a heart attack. I spent the whole day at work in shock. I spoke to my mother and felt that I needed to come and stop by after my shift. After a long conversation, she hesitantly agreed. When I arrived at her house, I found out that what she had told me previously about the heart attack was not the case. My father had been shot and killed in what was labeled self-defense. I saw how my sister fell into my stomach with her emotions and sobbed. My brother JJ was asleep. Afterwards, I came home to my wife, and our young baby sat on the floor and completely broke down. My life would never be the same. My sister was caught up in the middle of this hell. She was only 16 years old. My little brother was barely 7. Within a few weeks, life continued to move quickly. My little brother, in just one day, had his father ripped away from him, and so did my sister. No matter how tough Tylie tried to be, she was scared, and I know she was scarred. She held a burden that no teenager should ever have to endure. My father, Charles Vallow, cared for his family. He took care of our family, and he made sure that we had a good life. He was a very generous man. I'm going to give you the shirt off of his back. Here's the reality. In January 2019, I was told by my mother, Lori Vallow, that my father had been unfaithful to her for years. I was just shocked by this news. And Lori's actions sold the story. I naively believed her and thought that my father betrayed my family. Little did I know it was my mother having the affair all along. She accused others of what she was doing herself. I regretfully decided to stop speaking to my father. On July 11th, 2019, I would be flooded by the reality that my choice not to speak to him would be a lifelong sorrow. What I lost on July 11, 2019 was a father who was trying to help me in life, and a man who wanted to see his grandchild, and someone who wanted to give guidance and love. I lost a father. This affected me in more ways than anyone could ever know. I have to live with the regret of not speaking to him before he was murdered in cold blood. This did not only affect me. My little brother, JJ Vallow, was only 7 years old, and he had autism and had his life picked apart and never explained. One day he saw his father coming to him to pick him up at the house, and then never saw him again. My sister Tylie carried too much responsibility and was put in positions no child should ever have to be in. Part of that responsibility was being told to retrieve Lori's purse inside the house, possibly witnessing her father's body. Here's the reality. Neither Tylie nor JJ had time to even process or grieve. My mother, Lori Vallow, moved them out of state, and only a couple of weeks later, little did we know that my little sister, Tylie, only had 60 days before she would meet the same fate. My little sister must have been so scared, confused, anxious, and broken, and angry, and every emotion you could think of. My little brother, JJ, would only have 74 days before he met the same fate. He must have been confused, worried, sad, and frustrated without the ability to fully comprehend his feelings. I know I'm here to tell you the effect that this has had on me. In simple terms, each one of my family members was taken from us all in one swoop. My father was gone in an instant, and later my sister and brother disappeared until they were later found in Lori Vallow's new husband's backyard. This has affected me personally. I had to do something I've never done, and that was fight to stay alive after the pain. There are no words for what I've experienced, and I had to choose to fight and to stay alive for my children and for my wife. Now I'd like to address Lori Vallow. She claims to be Jesus's favorite. She claims to lead a spiritual life, and she claims that she loves everybody, and she also claims to have seen Jesus and visited with him. When did Jesus allow us to commit adultery? When did Jesus change the commandment of thou shalt not kill? When did Jesus allow us to steal money from our dead children? When did Jesus tell us to lie our way through life? It must be a very sad life to smile your way through all the pain you've caused. Rather than being able to acknowledge the pain that she has caused, she would rather say that Charles, Tylie, and JJ's death were a family tragedy and not her evil doing. And I will say this, if you want to see darkness, look at the murdering cult that claims God has commissioned their mission to kill my family and others. Quite frankly, I believe that Lori Vallow herself is the family tragedy. Thank you.
I really think that was incredibly well done. I was so proud of Colby. I've always said that he has lost more than anybody else in this entire case. You know, he lost the only father he really knew, and he lost his brother and his sister and his mother. And so he basically lost his entire family. And I really liked that he did not ever refer to himself as Lori's son or her as my mom, my mother, or anything like that. He referred to himself as Charles's son and did not acknowledge any relationship with her at all. And I thought that was very well done. I'm glad that he framed it that way. And I love that he talked about Tylie's experience and JJ's experience after his father was killed and how they must have felt. And that really gives us a perspective to understand the effects of her actions on all of these different victims.
Megan, I think that one of the most tragic parts about what Colby said is that based on a lie by Lori, he turned against his father. and
Yeah.
lost all that time when he could have had a loving relationship with him.
Yeah.
But Lori saw to it that he was turned against his father, and that's tragic. That will never go away for him.
Yeah. He said a lifelong sorrow. And it just goes to show how sinister the manipulative people are when they try to alienate their children against the other parent. And we see it happen all the time in divorce cases. And Colby pointed out that Lori was doing the very things she was accusing Charles of doing. And my friend Mindy Caldwell refers to this as you spot it, you got it, meaning, narcissistic people will often make accusations of others to the very things that they're doing. And, you mentioned everybody loves me. Well, not everybody does, but I think it's interesting to think about the accusations that some people make about me, and it's a very little small group of people. But it makes me wonder if they're not doing those exact things, because that's a pretty common tactic.
I had one of my guests talk about how his dad told him that liars are thieves.
Yes.
And here is an example of where a lie robs somebody of a relationship they could have had.
Exactly. When I wrote my statement, that's why it's one of the reasons why I referred to Lori as a thief and why I referred to her as stealing, because, she is a liar and a thief, and all of those other diagnoses or pop psychology terms or whatever, it doesn't really matter what the exact diagnosis is. It's all manipulation and control, and it's all bullying. And that's why I called my e-course Bully Proof, because it's just all different kinds of bullies. That's all they are. They're deeply insecure, and they mask that insecurity by pretending to be in control. And I think Lori exemplifies that to a T. And it struck me, Randy, as you were speaking about Colby's experience with his dad, Charles, that another one of those tactics that's really harmful is the isolation and the triangulation. Very purposeful, isolating Charles away from the family, and then triangulating by telling the lies to these other family members, getting them to believe it, and discrediting Charles. So then Charles becomes the pariah. Nobody believes him or wants to talk to him. And, everybody sort of gangs up on him. And it's such a typical tactic I see happening in families and relationships all the time that obviously doesn't always lead to this, but it is so harmful because it destroys families.
Sure does.
I wanted to mention Colby talking about sending Tylie back into the house for Lori's purse. This was an act of cruelty that I forgot about until Colby mentioned it. And what happened is that Lori was outside, I believe, in Charles's rental vehicle with both of the kids, and she had forgotten her purse. And so she sent Tylie back into the house with whatever was going on there. We don't know for sure at that time if Charles had already been shot. Tylie did say that she heard the shot. I don't know if Lori was still in there when the shot went off or not, because Lori's the only one who's still alive who was in that house. So we'll never know exactly what was happening. But when I was recapping that part of the trial testimony, I put the floor plan of the house up there on the screen so that we could have a good visual to see how this all might have happened. And one of two things happened. Either Tylie had to go in through the front door, where she most certainly would have seen Charles's body lying on the floor, or she would have gone in through the garage and Charles's body would have been just down the hallway, possibly still in view. So if he had already been shot at that time, Tylie would have witnessed Charles lying dead on the floor. She probably would have even witnessed Alex standing over him with a gun, all because Lori wanted to send Tylie back in to get her purse. And you can't tell me ever that that was not purposeful. I think she wanted Tylie to witness what was done, because I think there's a secret part of Lori that is very proud of what she's done, and she wants people to know about it, but she doesn't want to tell the truth because then she'll get in trouble for it. I think that's why her antics during the trial, where she kept opening the door for the evidence to come in of her other convictions, I think she secretly wanted the jury to know and to be there when she got to see the shock on their faces. There's just a sadistic part of her that I think is so disgusting.
When Cody talked about how Jesus wouldn't allow cheating on your spouse or murder or all that, I almost feel like he has hope for Lori. Like at some point, can't Lori get logical thought through? Can there be a way of getting a logical message through to Lori where she can finally sense what she's done? But I don't think it'll happen. I just don't know.
Well, I don't think it'll happen either. I don't know that I hear a hopeful tone in Colby when he is saying that. I think he's more saying it to indict her because, you know, she's claiming that she's Jesus's favorite, but this is not the Jesus that I know. It's not, you know, Lori's version of Jesus. I could be wrong, though. That's an interesting perspective to have, because there was a time, especially at the very beginning, when I went through a lot of ruminations about, you know, could I in fact, I did try to contact her. Could I talk some sense into her? Could I get the truth out of her? Could I say anything that would make her want to express remorse or something like that? And I eventually came to the conclusion that I really don't think anything can be said by anyone that will change how she feels or thinks.
You know, excuse me, they say that the opposite of love is not hate, but apathy. And he came across to me as just 100% apathetic. She's just gone. I don't want to even acknowledge her in my life. I'm done with her. And I could blame him.
Exactly. I got that sense when he finished his phone interview with her, that having been, you know, gaslit and lied to again, when he's giving her a final chance to redeem herself, I got that sense of finality from him then, that no, you're not going to be in my life. You're not going to be in my children's lives. You basically don't exist to us anymore. It was, of course, really heartbreaking to hear his mental state, that he has had to fight to stay alive through this tragedy and through all of this loss. I can't even imagine what he's been through. And I'm so proud of the strength that I see in him, and the resolve and the resilience and the desire to make something positive out of this, his life circumstance. And I love that he ended by saying that she's the family tragedy.
I thought that was the perfect way to end it.
Yeah, I agree.
He almost could have said, there would have been no tragedy if you weren't in our lives.
If you weren't in our family, right? So next was Larry Woodcock. Larry's statement was really hard for me to hear. I thought it was very well done. I'm glad that he was able to express what he wanted to express. I really loved that he said, "Look at me, Lori." I want to just play a couple of clips from his statement. That was one. I also really appreciated that he talked about the story of Lori trying to kill him. He told that story to Lauren and John of Hidden True Crime, and then said, "No, wait, don't tell that story." And then he came back and said, "Yes, go ahead and share it." He was visiting Lori and Charles in Hawaii, and Lori made him a fruit salad just before they got on the plane. And then once he got on the plane, he said he felt like he was going to die. He was vomiting into his hat, and he was in so much distress. He really didn't think he was going to live. And, of course, luckily he did. And he refers to it in his statement. And that's one of the parts I want to play.
Larry, have him speak next. Larry Woodcock, if you'd like to unmute, go ahead, sir. What would you like to tell me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you, sir. And thank the court for allowing me to be present. I truly wish I was there to look the murderers in the eyes. I'm unable to. I will say this.
So I want to pause here just for a second to point out to people who may not know who everybody is that's sitting in the jury box here. So this is Todd Tran, all the way on the end in the first row. That is JJ's biological father. Next to him is Kay, and then Kresha, and then Jerry Vallow, his wife Melanie, their daughter Amber. And I don't know who these two people are here, but this is one of Brandon's sisters on the end, and she gave a statement. And then in the back row, of course, on the end is Brandon, his wife Jenny, his brother, and then another sister, and I can't see who the rest of the people are, but his parents were sitting all the way on the end on the other side.
Oh, that Brandon's wife, when I first saw her, I thought she must be related to you and Lori, because she looked a little bit like Lori when Lori was young and, didn't look melted. Yeah. But
right.
She's no relation to that family, right? She's just
right. She's not. This is Brandon's second wife. Obviously, his former wife Melanie was the one involved, in my opinion, allegedly, in arranging for his shooting. So they're divorced. They actually had already been divorced and were working through custody at the time of his shooting. And I believe that Brandon, of course, he met Jenny much later, and he refers to all of that in his statement that we'll listen to later.
I know that you want all of this to be over, but do you think that Melanie will be facing a trial?
I hope that she will be. Kresha revealed that when we were in the family room after the sentencing was over, that Trina Kay made a comment, something to the effect of, well, it's not over, maybe, and then looked to Brandon and Jenny and said, I'm going to be in touch with you, and we're going to be meeting, and we'll see. So I hope that they do charge her, and I hope that she pleads guilty and serves her time. And I've put this out there publicly that if she is going to plead guilty, I will sit right beside her and hold her hand while she does it, if she needs someone to be there for her. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
I will say this. Murderers, you're nothing. You're a murderer. You're a narcissist, psychopath, delusional murderer. I can't tell you the harm that you have caused to our family, but I will tell you this. I know where you're going to be till you die. You're going to be in an 8x6 cell. You're going to have a steel cot. You're going to have a 12x8 desk and a stainless steel toilet. You will have 23 hours a day in there. I hope you spend the rest of your life, 23 hours a day, regretting your choices, because that's all it was, murderers. It was your choices. You made them. You and your husband, if that's what you want to call him. For what? You murdered Charles, the best thing that was ever in your life, for your delusional, narcissistic way. I will never speak your name again, murderers. You will never get anything out of me again in your life. You are nothing. You are nothing. You killed Tylie. Did you enjoy it? Look at me, Lori. Did you enjoy it? Did you dance around the fire like you sent the videos to Chad of you dancing around in your room for him? Did you enjoy it? And then the most precious thing, a 7-year-old, autistic, unbelievably God's present to Kay and I, to Todd. Look at Todd. Turn around and look at him, Lori, because that's the last time you're ever going to hear my name out of your mouth. Look at Todd. Have you said you're sorry? You wrapped JJ's hands in tape. You wrapped his arms in tape. You covered his eyes. And you buried him in 8 inches of ground. Murderous! May God have mercy on your soul, because that's the only thing in life. And don't count on God where you're going. You're nothing, murderous. I can't stand you. I always said, from out of some place you never saw came a sound you never heard. Well, I will not say that anymore. I want you to see and hear everything that's going to happen in your life. I want you to live it 23 hours a day. I despise you. You murdered JJ. You murdered Tammy. I'll always believe you murdered Alex. You're a murderer mistress, murderer. You're worthless. I can't believe 6.5 years of putting up with you. You are not worth it. The 4 murders that you're accused of are only ones that they can prove. Lori, you tried to kill me. I left your house in Hawaii. You tried to kill me going back home. But guess what? I beat you. I'm able to sit here and laugh at you and watch you go to prison. There's others you tried to kill. God bless JJ. God bless Tylie. And most of all, God bless our family. Thank you, Your Honor, for allowing me to speak my final piece to her.
I absolutely love Larry. He's one of my favorite people. It's so apparent to me that there is still so much pain and grief for him over JJ. And he called JJ God's present to us. It just guts me to feel the pain and anguish that he still has. So hard.
It was nice that he was able to hold back from what he really felt.
I honestly, Gene, I think he was holding back. I think he was. I think there's probably a lot more that he could have said, and it's probably a good thing he wasn't there in person. By the way, the reason he wasn't is because his best friend died, and his funeral was that day. And so he not only had to bury his best friend, but he had to also confront the person that, that killed his little JJ. Just heartbreaking. But I thought he got in some good things. I liked that he called her murderess, that he has his own name for her. And he is right. Charles was the best thing that came into Lori's life. All of her other husbands, Charles, I've listened to so many stories from the Vallow family about Charles's kindness and his generosity. And he very clearly really loved Lori. He very clearly would do anything for her. He moved to Hawaii for her. You know, he did different business ventures that she wanted to do. You know, he paid for that rental house for her in Phoenix when she did not want to move back to Texas. He bought cars and paid for cell phone plans for her family members. You know, he helped Colby out. He helped everybody. He loved everybody. And as is often the case with someone like Lori, she threw it away with both hands, you know.
What was his relationship? Was that JJ's grandfather?
Yes. That's Kay's husband, Larry. And he's been there for every day of Lori and Chad's trials. In fact, I sat next to him when I went to visit Chad's trial, and he has worked tirelessly to see justice for JJ and Charles and Tammy and Tylie, as has Kay. But the two of them have just really worn themselves out in the service of getting justice for these victims. And it's inspiring to see, you know, most families, if they do have something unfortunate like this in their family, they have one trial. You know, they have one trial is enough. It's so draining. It's so exhausting to have to sit there day after day and hear all the evidence and see the crime scene photos and hear the testimonies. You know, it's just exhausting. And in this case, they had to do it 4 times. And not only that, but they had to listen to Lori be her own attorney for the last 2 trials. You know, I can't imagine a worse thing to have to go through after losing somebody that you love or multiple somebodies that you love, to have to sit and endure that. And they've done it in just wonderful ways. It's very inspiring to see. I liked again that Larry said, "Look at me, Lori," twice, I think. And then that's the last time you're going to hear me say your name. I thought it was really interesting that he asked if she enjoyed it. I'm curious what you guys think about that.
I'm interested, or I was interested to hear him say, "You tried to kill this person, that person, this person, and I know you killed Alex too."
I will always believe you killed Alex.
Yeah. I think he's right on.
Yeah. And Judge Baresi has some comments about that later, which we'll talk about after he speaks. But I believe the same thing. You're never going to convince me that Alex's death was natural. The only little inkling that I have that it might not have been a murder, you know, we'll talk about what Judge Baresi says, but I absolutely believe that Lori caused his death one way or the other.
Right.
I also like that he mentioned the dancing, because Lori was sending all those videos of herself dancing to Chad. And then he asked if she was dancing around after Tylie's murder. I think that's a really interesting way to hold her to account and to get her to think about how she did feel. Because even though she's still going to hide behind her delusion, I think she probably does think about some of these comments as they come up. And I think she either dismisses them away, but it's pretty difficult. You know, if I ask you how you feel about something, even for someone who's delusional, it's pretty difficult for them to not think about how they feel when you ask them that question. Did you enjoy it? I bet she considered that, whether or not she enjoyed it. And were you dancing around? I bet she considered. I bet all of those feelings came back to her, and I bet not all of them were positive.
And I think that him saying those things also sort of helps the outside world see how bad Lori actually is. Yeah.
Because then we all imagine whether or not she enjoyed it. And I think there are parts of her that did. I think back to Chad Daybell's trial when there was a witness named Audrey. I can't remember if it's Baratario. I can't remember exactly how to pronounce her last name, but she was one of the people that was closest in this little coven of conspirators. And she was testifying, and we were shocked to hear that Lori threatened to kill her at one point. And she said, I'm not in the frame of mind to do it right now, but I can get there. And she said it was going to involve lots of blood and trash bags and bleach. And I think she said duct tape. I can't remember. And everybody was shocked to hear that, because it hadn't come up in the grand jury, and she hadn't talked about it, maybe except to prosecutors, or maybe she didn't mention it in her deposition, or whatever it was that went through the pretrial stuff that I didn't follow that stuff. But John Pryor was angry when he came back for cross-examination on that. He was angry, and he was trying to make everybody think that she made it up because she hadn't mentioned it before. But I believe it 100%. And I believe that Lori still could get there today if she had the opportunity.
She just seems so impervious to anything said. Like it just bounces off of her, and she's thinking, you people are so stupid. You people don't get it. Yeah. That's the feeling I get, that she's just so cavalier.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's always going to bother me the most, is her disrespect of the victims and her inability to feel the weight and the gravity of this situation. You know, she came into court, somebody mentioned that she was just smiling and laughing and giggling and, you know, flirting with her investigator. There's no sense about her of the seriousness of what she's about to listen to, the gravity of these statements, you know, the depth of the despair that she's caused. She doesn't care. She has absolutely no compassion at all. And she does, like you say, she's impervious to these words.
It reminds me of, I think it's Christopher Hitchens who says, you know, humans can do bad things, but it takes religion to do horrific things. And religious beliefs.
Yeah. Last night, I did a live where we talked about Lori's last public interview, and I played a clip from a video by Brittany Hartley, who the title of the video is She Still Believes It. And Brittany Hartley said, I will die on this hill. Lori Vallow did not go astray because she twisted the beliefs. She went astray because she believed so literally. She believed fundamentally. She was a fundamentalist, and she believed that core doctrine so hard that that's where she went wrong. And I think it's a really interesting idea and point of view that I agree with. Anyway, I like that Larry essentially finished by saying, I beat you. I bet that stung her a little bit, at least in her ego. And then he mentioned others. There were others. I know you've killed others. And I don't know if he was referring to Joe Ryan, her third husband, which we, many of us suspect that she had something to do with that, allegedly. So, or I don't know if Larry suspects even others, you know, in this little cult that he talked about. But we may never know how many people she poisoned. That's a scary thought.
Did they have any analysis done on the fruit salad, or I mean, this is the first I'm hearing of it when I watched this on television. I hadn't heard anything about a fruit salad or attempted poisoning of him. So that's really interesting to me. It sounds to me like she did try to end his life as well. And
yeah,
why?
I don't.
For what?
Because she could. Because she was mad at him out of revenge for some reason. You know, she would just get angry at people and want to control them. I mentioned before that poisoners are cowards. They don't want to directly confront somebody. So it's a passive thing to do. But I don't think Larry realized at the time, I don't think he put it together that it was the fruit salad or realized that it was poison. I think that came to him in hindsight, much like my experience with Alex when Stacy died. I didn't think about that being, I knew it was suspicious, but I waved away my concerns because who wants to believe that that's true? Who would have believed me at the time? If I would have told Janice and Barry at the time, they would have laughed at me.
What was the final disposition of her body?
She was cremated.
Of course. Yeah.
Yep. Other instances of poisoning. We know that she was crushing up JJ's medication and putting it in Charles's smoothies to get him to chill out. We also know that she would give Benadryl or other things like that to her children to get them to go to sleep earlier. And Charles's children as well had done that as well. So she has a long history of this. And it's frankly terrifying to think about, how many people might have been affected by that and not even know it. But I think she's been practicing for years.
Charles in medicine and put it in JJ's.
Yeah, JJ had some medication that was, I think most people use it as an anti-anxiety. And she was crushing it up and putting it in Charles's smoothies to get him to chill out, is kind of how the person put it.
Yeah, there's no telling. Oleandrin is incredibly common in Arizona, the oleanders, which are very, very poisonous. And by crushing up the leaves of those, that will kill a person pretty easily. And who knows how many people she attempted to kill with just that.
Right. And she and Chad had malachite wedding bands. Malachite is another very poisonous substance. Once you lacquer it over, like for jewelry, it's benign. But we know that Alex went to Mexico pretty frequently for medications, and who knows what he was buying down there. If you know the right questions to ask and the right places to go, you can get all manner of things. And the thing is, we're learning this in the trial of this dentist who poisoned his wife, who was Mormon, allegedly. I don't think they've reached a verdict yet. But, when you go into the hospital, even if you suspect that you've been poisoned, it's very, very difficult to nail it down to a specific thing, because you have to test for that specific thing. You have to kind of know or suspect what was used, because a typical tox panel is not going to come back with things like tetrazine, which is in eye drops, or malachite, or any of that stuff, because they ran a lot of those tests on this woman who was being poisoned, and they couldn't figure it out what was going on until somebody else spoke up. So that's one of the other things about poisoning, is that a lot of people probably get away with it because, they don't know, the doctors don't know specifically what to screen for. And that's why when we talk about Alex's autopsy, the things that they did test for, of course, they knew his death, the timing of it was suspicious. So they did do an autopsy, and they did save blood and tissue samples to be tested at a later time. Those, of course, expire at some point. But unless you know exactly what to test for, it's very, very hard to detect. So we may never know. After Larry was Susan Vallow, who is the older sister of Charles. I want to play one little part of her statement that was touching to me, her story of the last time she and Charles interacted.
I'm Susan, one of Charles's older sisters. I'm here to share the emotional impact of Charles's tragic sister's death for me. Charles and I had just started renewing our relationship with each other. One day in 2019 at Kay's house, Charles said to me, "Come see, sis." So I went to see what he wanted. He said, "I'm going to give you a car." And I just about passed out. I told him, I said, "I love you, Charles." And he said, "I love you too, sis." And we hugged. And these were the last words we ever spoke to each other. Needless to say, because of your selfish, deliberate, and horrifying actions, it's never happened. My brother's love, kindness, and generous nature knew no bounds. He wore his heart on his sleeve. You took all that away from us.
I was grateful to be there to witness, the love that these people had for Charles. It's of course heartbreaking to hear the pain that still exists, and that's going to ripple out forever. The grief we've talked about that really just doesn't ever go away. It just maybe is less frequent. Maybe it's a little easier to deal with as time goes by. But I loved Susan holding Lori accountable by saying that, this is what we had. We had this love and you took it away from us because of your selfishness. It was interesting to see that Susan said that they were just starting to repair their relationship. So we've said before, there is no such thing as a perfect victim. And Charles certainly had his flaws, it sounded like. And his family members have all talked about different times when they've been estranged from each other or when they've gotten in arguments. But I just love their ability to come back together and repair and keep trying and keep talking to each other. That's, I think, the difference between Charles's family and Lori's family. Next was Todd Tran, who is JJ's biological father. And I thought his comments were very moving. I think I want to play the whole thing of his. He obviously has struggled with addiction. He's been, he was in prison during the last trial, and they made special arrangements for him to be able to travel and be here to give this statement. And I'm so grateful that he was there. I got a chance to meet him and speak with him afterwards at the family gathering, and he is just such a kind and humble man. And just
to whom was he married?
He was not married. This is JJ's biological father, and he and his girlfriend are the biological parents of JJ. And sadly, his girlfriend passed away. She also struggled with addiction.
Gotcha.
Todd was able to overcome his addictions and get clean, and he has plans to help other parents who are struggling with addiction. And that was really touching to me to hear that. I think he's going to help a lot of people.
And I'm so sorry because I know you covered it, and I'm just a little hitch for me in my brain. But how did JJ come into the lives of Lori and Charles?
So Todd and his girlfriend were unable to care for JJ because of their addiction issues. JJ was born with an addiction because of his mother's addiction. And so they asked Kay and Larry to take care of JJ. But Kay and Larry, of course they wanted to, and they did for a little while, but they realized that Charles and Lori had Colby and Tylie and felt like they could give JJ a little bit more of a family environment that he could grow up in instead of growing up with, as Kay put it, two old people as his parents.
And they probably will feel guilty, even though they shouldn't. They'll probably feel a sense of guilt for that for the rest of their lives, not having any idea that the murderers would attack, because it made perfect sense when it happened.
Right.
But I'm just saying that if I understand grief, they'll probably feel guilty because they didn't keep JJ to raise him.
Right. And it's as you say, they have no reason to feel guilty, but I'm sure that there are some of those feelings that are so hard to push away when you're going through grief. And Randy, you and I have talked about this a lot before. A lot of times the initial denial phase of grief makes you want to find somebody to blame for the grief. And of course we can all blame Lori, but I think probably all of the family members associated with this have taken our turn to examine our own role in this story. And I'm sure we've all asked ourselves, what could I have done, or what should I have done differently to prevent this from happening? I think that's a normal part of the grieving process too, is to blame yourself.
I get that tight feeling in my chest myself for not taking Alex serious when he said he wanted to kill his brother-in-law. And could he borrow a gun? I have to deal with those what ifs. What if I maybe told the police that, would they keep a closer eye on him? I guess, I guess there's no looking back. Obviously, we can't change anything. It is what it is. But yeah, you're right. People think, what if? And there's a lot of those what ifs.
Yeah, and I've done that myself, thinking about what would it have been like if instead of backing away from the family when Lori started saying crazy things about Joe Ryan, what if I had stayed engaged and tried to be a good influence on her and tried to help her? Tylie is, she was just a couple of years younger than one of my daughters, and maybe they could have been friends. Maybe I could have helped Tylie. I've been through all of that. And not to mention the fact that people have questioned me a lot about where were you? Where were you when the kids were missing? What were you doing? You didn't help with that at all. And now all of a sudden you show up when there are trials and you start giving interviews, and they've been critical of me for that. But I was here. I was here in Texas. I was estranged from a lot of the family. And the moment that I posted the picture of JJ and Tylie and said, please help us find these children, I got blocked by several family members who are obviously Team Lori, who wanted to believe that she really did have them secreted away in a bunker somewhere. And so I was not getting any information about what was really going on. I only had one family member who knew some of the goings on and was talking with Kay and was willing to talk to me as well. And so just like the rest of the public, I was waking up in the morning, looking at the news to see, have they found the kids? I was talking to my friend who has relatives in Hawaii to say, hey, have you seen these kids? Can you ask your relative if they've seen the kids? I was talking about it on social media. I was telling my friends that these kids were missing, but I had no information, and, that could help the police. And it wasn't until Alex died that I put together all of those memories from Stacy's death and had an aha moment. And I immediately called the FBI and I said, I think, he had something to do with Stacy's death, told them all of the circumstances. And they said, well, that's not really evidence we can use, but they encouraged me to make a police report here in San Antonio, which I did. And they told me, the potential murderer is dead. The body's been cremated. We didn't have cell phone data back then very much. There's really nothing that they could do. And I also called the FBI one other time when Lori and Chad were missing and they were looking for Lori and Chad. And I called the FBI and I said, have you tried Hawaii? And they're like, why would you say that? Because I think they already knew at that point. So I didn't have anything law enforcement could have used. I didn't have any connections to any family members. I didn't even have Lori's cell phone number because the one that I had for her was 4 burner phones ago. There was nothing I could do. And I felt so helpless sitting here listening to news reports and listening to people speculate about my family members. And I think for me, it was 2 things. One, when I heard that Lori had sold JJ's service dog, and then also when they showed the pictures of the storage unit that she rented with all of JJ and Tylie's blankets and photographs and other toys. I think that's when I really believed there's no way that they could still be alive.
What was Stacy's listed cause of death?
I don't know.
I was going to say, if I were to look at her birth certificate, I would love to know what the cause of death is that's listed.
Thank you for saying that, because I will find out. As a family member, I can get a copy. But I also wish that we could still see her medical records. I don't know if they even exist anymore, or if there's a way to find them anymore, because it was very confusing for me at the time. I was only 24 years old. I was so young and I was so naive that I didn't ever question anything my family members told me. You know, I believed everything. And when we were there at the hospital waiting to hear from the doctors, and they came out and they talked to my parents for a very long time. And then my parents came over and asked me if I thought Stacy had been drinking. And I said, no, I've never known her to be a drinker. And also I've cooked in their kitchen and been in their house enough that, you know, the only alcohol I ever saw was some cooking wine in the pantry. Now, that doesn't mean that there wasn't alcohol in the house, and it doesn't mean that she wasn't drinking. But apparently there was an elevated alcohol level in her blood. Somebody commented to me once that high sugar can look like a high blood alcohol level. I don't know for sure. I'm not a doctor, obviously, but I would love to see her medical records and know what they found and what they looked for, because I still have questions about that today. I don't know how to.
So I actually have another appointment to get to do another recording. So I'm gonna head off now. You guys keep up the good work, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Gene. Thanks for being with us for this. I really appreciate it. By the way, that woman is Nicole Byer. She is the victim's advocate for this court system, and she's one of the victim's advocates, and she is a very kind person. She was very kind to me, and she did an excellent job taking care of the families.
Oh, good. Good.
Yes, sir.
And what would you like to tell me, sir?
I'm asked to address Lori, if I can.
Go ahead.
Lori, Uncle Charles was a man of God, love. He knew God because he loved everybody around him. I trusted y'all with my family, the only son I had, because I couldn't give him the life that y'all could give him. I gave him up for y'all to raise him. I deal with the regret. I've dealt with the torment of making that choice. I'm here today to forgive you. I know what it's like to be in prison. I was in prison when y'all got the rights to my son. I know what it's like. Once you get done with this court and you go sit in that cell, you got to relive everything that you did. I hope for you that you understand the truth of what God did on the cross, because God died not only for me, he died for the unlovable, people that the world thinks shouldn't, they judge. I hope you understand the truth before you die. You still have a chance. You don't have to live evil the rest of your life. You can turn from that. You ask God to come into your life and show you his love, and it'll transform you. I want to thank the court for letting me get up here and say these things. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I thought it was just so beautifully done, and
a simple childlike faith, and very, very heart-wrenching.
Yeah. I do have to say, though, at the very end, when he said, I want to thank you for letting me come here and say these things, my Mormon brain said, say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
That's exactly what I was waiting for.
But I loved that he spoke about regret. He spoke about forgiveness. And he told her, he knows what prison's like. You have to relive all the things that you've done. And that's what Lori has to look forward to. And there is a tiny, tiny speck in my brain that has hope that the amount of time that she has to sit there is going to cause her some honest reflection at some point. I think it's going to take, go ahead.
I thought about that, and I wondered if she was truly had just any form of compassion whatsoever hidden deep in the layers. If it were me, I would take my own life. And I wonder if she's gonna finally, it's gonna hit her and she is going to end her life. But that seems a little too noble for her.
I think that is too noble for her. And I also think she is too much of a coward to do it. But
yeah,
I was talking with Detective Consitus during the family gathering, and I was saying that, you know, there was a part of me that wishes she wasn't in protective custody where she is right now, in one of the worst jails in the country, because prisoners do have a code. And Detective Consitus was actually the one who said that they have a code in there, and, you know, they have a certain way that they feel about people who hurt children, and they would just do what they do.
She wouldn't last 10 minutes if she weren't in protective custody.
I wonder. Yeah, I wonder. So I wonder what it's going to be like when she goes back to Idaho. I don't know if the people in Idaho are the same as the Arizona people as far as prison goes, if they're brutal enough to do that to her. But I think that there are some things that can crack the shell of delusion and narcissism. One of them is profound loss. But in Lori's case, she caused the loss of all the things that she should have cared about. And the other one is for them to receive a hard reset, let's say. So if someone were to severely injure her, or if her life were threatened, or if she had to face her own mortality, receive life-threatening injuries somehow, that's something that can sometimes cause that shell to crack. But who knows? You know, she might just double down into the persecution complex.
You know, I am grateful that she didn't get the death sentence. I'm grateful that she's serving her life in prison, because in my opinion, that's too good for her to give her the death sentence and then her suffering's over. Or, you know, who knows, but but making her stay alive in a prison cell, that gives her time to think about what she really is. And it also gives her time to find out and prove to the rest of the world that all these grand illusions that she had of being a translated being, and that Jesus Christ is going to see to it that she is found innocent, or that she'll be, you know, released. It's not going to happen now. Now she gets to think, and she gets to realize she's wrong. She gets to realize that Chad's predictions and his revelations were all BS. And I'm glad for that. Death is too good for Lori Vallow.
I agree with you. I used to really be in support of the death penalty, especially for people who harm children. I used to think that was justice, that, you know, you end someone's life, you don't get to have a life anymore. You know, that's the way you're going to play this game. You don't get to play anymore. But I have to tell you, I thought that death is what I wanted for Chad Daybell. I thought it's what I wanted for Lori too. But when Chad was sentenced, all I could feel was emptiness. It just felt so hollow to take another life after all the lives that have been taken. And I did a lot of research about the death penalty and how costly it is, and how people who deserve it don't get it, and people who don't deserve it do get it. And the fact that it's pretty much location based. You know, there are certain counties that execute more people than others. And so it really isn't justice.
No, it's actually humane, and he doesn't deserve that.
Right.
Same situation. He deserves to rot in jail, thinking about what he has done. And if he's, if they kill him, it's a painless thing, and he's off the hook.
Yeah. And I as much as we, can speculate about other inmates hurting Lori, I actually want her to die old and alone. I think that would be justice.
Absolutely.
Going back to Todd for a second, the one of the last things he said is that God died to bring love to the unlovable. Is that what he said? I know he said the word unlovable.
Yeah.
He died for the people who are unlovable.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty profound, actually, what he said.
Yeah. I hope he doesn't count himself among the unlovable, because I think he is very lovable.
Yeah.
An amazing person.
That was clear in the simple message that he delivered.
Yeah.
I was thinking that it would be great. I mean, if Chad Daybell has to die, and I know he's sentenced to die, I think that Lori should have to witness the execution.
That's an interesting
Just
thought.
let her feel. Just let her, because take something she loves. If she loves anything, if she's even capable of that, make her witness the execution.
That's a really interesting thought. I have mixed feelings about it right off the bat as you say it. I think I've said this before. I think Chad has had a moment of reckoning. I could be wrong about that. I don't know him. I never saw him before I saw him in court. But observing him in court and the way he sort of looked smug and the way that he pretended to cry when they talked about Tammy, and the way that he just kind of scrolled through the autopsy photos without any change of expression on his face. But when they pronounced his sentence, the sentence of death, I saw something in his person deflate. There was something in his demeanor that changed. And maybe I'm just fantasizing, but I like to think that he's had some kind of a reckoning where he understands now that this was all made up, that Lori sort of manipulated him into manipulating her and telling her what she wanted to hear, which was the people that she wanted out of their lives were dark. That's my little fantasy, is that he's had that realization now, that he's stopped communicating with her, that he doesn't want to have anything to do with her. And that, I don't know, that's just my little fantasy.
Well, that would be just as well, because, now Lori will have to think, wait a minute, is he not as holy and worthy of the revelation as I thought? And is he leaving me behind here? And now what?
Yes, I thought it was very interesting when Nate Eaton asked her, how's Chad? And she said, Chad and I aren't speaking, which to me
what's
means,
that all about?
Well, when you say, we're not able to communicate, then she went on then to say, well, it's hard for us to talk. We can only send postcards. But she would have led with that if that was the real problem. When you say we aren't speaking, that means one or the other of you is angry with the other person.
Exactly.
And it gives me a little bit of delight. I'm not going to lie. It's a petty thing to think that Chad has stopped communicating with her and that she's upset about it. And maybe that actually is something that has the potential to break through her brain if Chad never speaks to her again and she has to sit there wondering why. And she has to sit with that injury to her ego, that she's not in control of him anymore. And, will she look for some prison guard to manipulate, or some, stupid fan who will write her letters or whatever? I mean, I'm sure she's going to try to manipulate, other inmates into being her warriors that are going to break out of prison. But yeah, it's interesting to think about, I think.
Yeah.
So next was Kresha. And Randy, thank you so much for doing this for me. You've already been through all of this.
Oh my gosh, I'm honored to be able to discuss it and have you bounce these things off with Gene and I. So
Yeah,
I'm very happy
you.
to do it.
Thanks. So yeah, this is Kresha. She and I have become good friends. I'm really grateful for her. We've had so many long conversations about things we can't say in public.
Yeah.
Speculations and, other ways to support each other, basically. By the way, Judge Baresi called each person by name, and he looked at them intently the entire time they spoke. That's something that probably not everybody could see from the courtroom cameras.
He's a very dignified judge, in my opinion. Before you start this, Kresha is related to, tell me the relationship there.
So Kresha is Kay Woodcock's daughter. So she would be the niece of Lori, and the aunt to Tylie and JJ. She is the niece of Charles.
Okay, gotcha.
She always says, "My Uncle Charles." She has that Louisiana accent. So yes, Judge Baresi, kind, compassionate, dignified, and also capable of delivering one-liners.
I love that mug.
I still have some of these, or actually not me personally, but the company that made these, and we will do another pop-up shop to benefit nonprofits and sell some more of these mugs.
Yeah, and I got to see one of the shirts on Miss Woozy last night. She was wearing all pass, I think it was.
I'll take a pass on that. Yeah.
I'll take a pass on that. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yes.
What would you like to say?
All right, let's see. My name is Kresha K. Trahan, and I stand before this court today as a voice for the shattered remains of my family, a family that has been ruthlessly decimated, not only were lives stolen, but also our peace, our trust, and the very fabric of what a family should be. Charles, my uncle, and my mother Kay's beloved brother, was so much more than just a relative. He was a cornerstone of our family. I remember his infectious laugh, his corny jokes, his unwavering optimism, and his genuine care for everyone around him. He had a way of making everyone feel seen and valued. I gotta catch my breath. One of my fondest memories is how he was always there for my mother, his sister, Kay. Their bond was incredibly strong, and they supported each other through everything. He was the kind of man who would drop anything to help someone in need. The news of his death in July 2019 shattered me, and it sent shockwaves through our entire family. It was sudden and incomprehensible. My mother, Kay Vallow Woodcock, his sister, was also devastated. The pain of losing her brother was immense, and it was a wound that has never fully healed. It's hard to see your own mother go through these kind of things because it's something you can't fix. For me, it felt like a light had gone out in the world. We relied on his steady presence and his ability to bring people together. The initial grief was compounded by the horrific circumstances surrounding his death. To learn that his own wife was involved in his demise was a betrayal of the deepest kind. It added a layer of anger and disbelief to our sorrow. The questions of why and how haunted us, turning our grief into a constant ache of injustice. We now know the chilling extent of the premeditation. Records on Chad Daybell's Gmail account show searches for Ned Schneider, 1996, Death, Louisiana, and bodies possessed after original occupant dies, as early as January 28, 2019. This was before Charles was ever referred to as Ned Schneider. This revealed a calculated descent into her delusion. Charles was fighting for his life and for his children's future long before his death. On February 20th, 2019, Charles called Banner Life to change his beneficiary to my mother, Kay, specifically for his special needs son, and to place a PIN code on his account. He was clearly concerned about someone accessing his account. Just 6 days later, on February 26, 2019, he called again to finalize the change, but couldn't provide a password he had never set. That's how distraught he was. He had never set the password. He had set the password and forgot that he had set the password. Growing angry as he suspected fraudulent access. From March 19th to March 21st, 2019, even while Charles was alive and still married, his wife and Chad Daybell traveled from Idaho to Arizona together, as evidenced by tickets in her iCloud account. On March 21st, 2019, she was back at the 4 Points Sheraton in Mesa using their Wi-Fi, all while plotting and believing in twisted narratives. Her so-called spiritual beliefs were nothing more than a thinly veiled excuse for murder, justification for murder. The names used for Charles, Ned Schneider, he blows, we don't know, were born from Chad Daybell's internet searches. Zalema's cellular phone records paint a disturbing picture of the generated belief system, with discussions about Chad's so-called gifts to cast out dark spirits, remove swords, and place spiritual armor. This was all a grotesque fabrication designed to justify heinous crimes. There was talk of healing quicker and reversing age, for Christ's sake.
Sorry, I just want to breathe with Kresha for a second, because she's exhaling here, and this is how I was feeling, and her sort of muttering, for Christ's sake, the disbelief with all of the ridiculousness that they were talking about. And one night on my channel, I read through all of these text messages between the co-conspirators with the castings and all of that. And it just sounded like teenage girls playing make-believe. It was so ridiculous. And to find out that your family member has been killed over this kind of ridiculous nonsense has got to be infuriating.
It's the shortness of breath she's experiencing just shows you how her nerves are in bundles, and her anger and her frustration that she must be experiencing. It almost leaves you. That's why we talk about, I'm speechless, and I just can't blame her at all for feeling like she's feeling. And it takes your breath away, really.
Yeah, and it sounds, at the end of some of her sentences, you hear a huh, and it sounds like even like she's laughing a little, but that's not what it is. It's that nervous exhale of pent up energy and anger and frustration, like all of those emotions sitting with her right now. And it was really hard to be there for that, to, knowing and loving Kresha as I do, having her experience that. And this was one of those moments when Nancy Jo had her hand on my knee, and I was just trying to breathe through everything that I was feeling.
I'm glad you had Nancy Jo there to kind of give you some consolation and support.
Me too. It was a tender mercy, as we say.
Actively plotting the deaths of innocent people that trusted her. Perhaps the most heartbreaking detail is the decision Charles made to try and make his marriage work. He truly believed in reconciliation, and he really loved Lori, his wife. He took his wife back into his life, and in a text to his attorney, Taylor, he wrote, quote, "What can I say, Taylor? Love always wins," unquote. These were the words of a man clinging to hope, a hope that ultimately led him to his death.
I think this is one of the most heartbreaking things for me, to think that Charles was so trusting and loving and forgiving and optimistic. To think that those good qualities about Charles are some of the things that led to his death, I think that is a thought that will never stop gnawing at me, I think. Because
if there's any silver lining to that, it's that he canceled or he changed the beneficiary of the life insurance before he was killed.
yeah.
And that makes me, it's like score one for Charles there.
Yes. Yes. And I noted in my statement that he outsmarted her in that way. I just wish that he would have told her. Nancy Joe suggested that he tell her, and he said, maybe I should. And that tells me I really don't think he walked into that house expecting to die. He knew that Alex was there, and he knew what Alex had done to Joe Ryan. So maybe he was thinking, okay, well, if Alex tries to attack me, he's not going to get the better of me. Charles was much stronger than Alex, even though Alex was taller than Charles. But yeah, it's just sad to think about all of the different scenarios of what could have been, but we have to stop doing that at some point. Anyway, this was a hard moment for me when Kresha said that. And, Grayson, who is my friend Lauren's producer from Hidden True Crime, they were sitting in the back of the courtroom in the press seats for the media. And Grayson texted me and asked if I was okay, because I'd had my head down for a long time, and my shoulders were probably shaking as I was crying. And it was kind of her to check on me. So I appreciated that too. I have so many good people who've helped me through all this.
I'm telling you that everybody loves Megan.
Tylie, my step cousin, was a bright and blossoming young woman full of life and potential. Even though our family connection was through marriage, she was our family connection. I'm sorry. She was always considered one of us. I remember her vibrant energy and her protective nature towards JJ. It reminds me of how I am with my brother Todd. She had dreams of traveling the world and truly living life. She possessed a unique spirit and a kindness that radiated from her. When Tylie disappeared, the initial worry quickly turned into agonizing fear. We desperately hoped for her safe return, clinging to any shred of possibility. The eventual news of her murder was soul-crushing, a stark and brutal end to a life that had barely begun. The pain of knowing her potential was extinguished so violently, it's unbearable. We mourn the experiences she will never have, the milestones she will never reach, and the person she would have become. The world is undeniably darker without Tylie.
I'm so grateful to Kresha for humanizing Tylie this way and for honoring her this way. Because, she was so young the last time that I saw her. I'm really grateful to everybody who has talked about who she really is, rather than who the person Lori wanted people to believe she was. Difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
And, she wanted people to believe that she was obstinate and a pain. And I'm so tired of hearing, Lori disrespect her victims that way. So this is beautiful from Kresha.
My only nephew was a sweet and innocent little boy who brought immeasurable joy to our family. Joshua Jackson Vallow was born Canaan Todd Tran. He was born to my brother Todd Tran and his longtime girlfriend Mandy Leger in Lake Charles, Louisiana on May 25th, 2012. He was 10 weeks premature and he had drugs in his system. I remember pacing the halls of the labor and delivery floor to see what his prognosis was. And I remember praying and reaching out to friends on social media to ask them to pray too. I remember him having tubes and wires coming out of his tiny little body to help him reach stable balance. My nephew smashed my own doubts and fought so hard to come into this world. And it's no surprise to me to learn how he fought for his life to stay in this world. When his mother, his uncle, and his mother's side piece preyed on a 7-year-old autistic boy and snuffed him out.
Just to clarify, because people sometimes get confused by Kresha sort of switching scenarios here. He was betrayed by his mother Lori, his uncle, Alex, and his mother's side piece, Chad Daybell.
Chad.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that she referred to him as that.
As the side piece, yeah. I loved that too.
Later burying him in a shallow grave in the backyard of her future husband's property. As an autistic child, he had unique challenges, but also unique gifts. His infectious giggle, his love for dinosaurs and planes, and his need for a routine or memories we will forever cherish. I saw a video where he would line up his plushie toys and he would play the drums for his audience. It was so cute. Okay, sorry. My mouth is so dry. I'll never, oh, wait. Or how he sang on my parents' 56 passenger bus and then was joined by his Papa Larry to sing to one another. I'm also blessed to have captured this interaction on film that day. I never knew it would be played by news outlets all over the world when he and his sister Tylie had gone missing. He was a vulnerable and trusting child who relied on the adults in his life for love and protection. The betrayal of trust in his adoption and subsequent murder is a profound and lasting wound. She adopted him to get him out of a bad situation just to murder him? Lori Noreen Cox was an unloved daughter. She didn't even get her own name.
When Kresha started saying this part, my jaw just about hit the floor, because I had told her that I was going to do a statement of some kind. I knew I couldn't do it in court as the family member of the defendant. And so I said, I'm going to write a character witness for Lori, but I'm going to be real about it. I'm not going to, use it as an excuse or ask the judge for leniency, quite the opposite.
Sure.
And so I emailed her or texted her the part that I had finished up to that point. It wasn't all the way finished, but I said, if any of this can help you in writing your statement, feel free to borrow, use whatever you think will be helpful, thinking that would just jog her memory. I had no idea that she was going to actually read my words in court. And I'm just very grateful to her for getting this part of it on the record. So thank you.
And
Kresha.
that's probably cathartic for you to be able to have your voice included in that.
Yeah, I was blown away. So very grateful.
She was never allowed to be herself, an individual with her own identity and her own life. She was always told she was someone else, living someone else's life. Her mother, in her grief over losing her infant daughter, convinced herself that Lolly's spirit came back to her in a new body. She convinced herself that she never lost Lolly, but that Lolly was so special she was allowed to come back to Earth again. And then she was convinced that she was Lolly. But the reality is that Lolly was lost. The hard truth is that sometimes infants die, and there's no reasoning and no explanation that makes it feel better. Sometimes babies just die. But her mother couldn't sit with that. She couldn't accept that. And so instead, she taught her that she was Laura Lee. She taught her that Laura Lee must have had such a special mission that her spirit got to come back in her body. She was taught that she didn't matter. She was taught that she didn't deserve to have her own name, her own life, her own identity. She was devoured. And then to make matters worse, she was violated. I don't know when or how or by whom exactly, but she knows. She knows what happened. She knows who did it to her. She may pretend that it never happened, but the memory of it lives in her cells, and she can't ignore because those feelings come for her, and they find her in the quiet moments she wishes would go away. I know what it, okay, sorry. I'm gonna skip. That was, I'm crediting Megan for that.
I can't believe she said my name.
I think that's so sweet that she did, and you deserve to be credited.
I wonder what went through Lori's head when she heard that. I wonder what went through Summer's head when she heard that.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that just hit me. What you had written, that Tylie never got a chance to be her own person. She was never given the opportunity to be Tylie. She was a resurrected lolly, and that's such BS. It's to take away someone's identity like that is just tragic.
Just to clarify, what I was talking about was that Janice, and I think Kresha got some of the pronouns mixed up there, so it was a little confusing, but Janice lost a baby who they named Laura Lee. They called her Lolly. And then when Lori was born the next year, or I think it was 2 years later, Janice always told Lori that Lolly's spirit came back into Lori's body. So Lori didn't have her own identity. But
gotcha. Okay.
But what you're saying about Tylie is true. And I referred to this later down in my statement, that Lori did the same thing to Tylie. Lori told Tylie that maybe she was the spirit of her dead sister, Stacy. And also, Lori just completely, what I said in my statement is that Lori took her life long before she was murdered, because she wasn't allowed to be her own person either. She was her mother's pawn in her mind games and all of that. And she just controlled Tylie and told her what to do and told her how to act and gave her a narrative to spin. It was just heartbreaking to think of it that way too.
Oh, that is. Those kids just didn't get a break.
I know. I did a video on my channel about the Jungian concept of the devouring mother archetype. And I talked about Ruby Franke being a devouring mother and Lori being a devouring mother, because they take from their children. They take everything from their children, but most of all, their ability to grow up and individuate and be something separate and different from their mother.
That's tragic.
It really is, yeah.
Here's a final plea for justice. The actions of the defendant have systematically dismantled families, leaving behind a trail of unimaginable grief and trauma. My family, especially my mother and my brother, have endured unspeakable pain because of these actions. We lost a brother, a son, and a nephew. And the lingering fear and sorrow inflicted are a constant heavy burden. I implore this court to impose the maximum sentence possible. The defendant deserves to spend the rest of her life incarcerated, held accountable for every life stolen, every heart broken, and every family destroyed. Her calculated cruelty has earned her nothing less than the hardest consequences. Let justice finally be served for Charles, Tylie, and JJ, and I can't forget Tammy. My uncle Charles's last words to his attorney about taking his wife back were, "What can I say, Taylor? Love always wins." In his memory and for the countless lives impacted by these horrific crimes, I hope that justice for once truly wins. Thank you.
I noticed at one point that Kresha looked up from her notes and said something to the judge, and the judge nodded. You know, he wanted her to know he was really listening to her. I think he did that with almost everybody. Well, with everybody is what I observed in the courtroom. There was something else I was going to say, and it's gone.
I think it came through that he was listening intently to every one of these pleas for justice.
Yeah. And I think it's so important for the judge to fully understand all of the ripple effects of this. And I think he does. I think he really was compassionate about that.
He seems very perceptive of all the different points about this. And it's like I said, he's just got a dignified way about him that demands respect and admiration. And yeah.
I'm very grateful to him.
I don't think Lori is.
No, she's not. It's very clear that she does not like Judge Baresi. Now we're going to listen to some of Kay's. I want to listen to the whole thing. I just don't know if I can. And I will also say there was some kind of law, and I don't know exactly, but Kay was talking about this in the family room afterwards, that that they discovered that there was a law that allowed for JJ to have a voice. And I certainly did not expect this to happen. It gutted me. But Kay read a letter that she wrote as if it was written by JJ, and read it literally so that JJ could have a voice. And she was expressing regret that she didn't think of it, but she has several voicemails saved on her phone in JJ's voice of JJ calling her. And she said he would just call up and say, "Hi, it's JJ." And she said she wishes that she would have thought to play that in court, because it would have been very impactful. As it was, we were all in tears the whole time. And I will just say, just in case, you know, I can't listen to the whole thing, but we'll definitely play at the end of JJ's letter when Kay turns to Lori. And I guess I didn't realize you guys couldn't see this from the TV feed, because the TV camera was focused on the back of Lori's head. I think trying to get any sort of semblance of a reaction from her to see if she was reacting at all. But at the end of that letter, Kay turned. She was facing the judge and Lori's over here, and she turned and she said, "I trusted you." She screamed that. And at that moment, Trina Kay stood up, and I was like, uh-oh, what's going to happen? I was really afraid that Trina was going to try to physically restrain her, or that she was going to get reprimanded somehow. And so I asked Trina Kay about that at the gathering afterwards. And she said, "I don't know what I was going to do, but I was thinking my shoes are a deadly weapon." And she didn't want the defendant to get attacked because that could cause all kinds of legal problems, etc. She wanted to prevent that from happening. So it just blows me away, the compassion and kindness and caring from every person involved in this, that Trina Kay really cared so much about the families, worked so hard for them. And yeah.
Yeah, she's another incredible player in this whole thing. That
Yeah. So here's Kay's statement.
I was wondering what they were talking about here.
I think Kay wasn't sure if she was going to read JJ's letter first or if she was going to read hers. So I think she was asking if JJ's was there on the computer, and maybe somebody had to go print it for her or something.
Your Honor.
Gotcha.
I stand before you today to honor Charles, my big brother. This courtroom is where Charles finally receives the justice he fought for and never saw in life. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Charles was more than my brother. He was the backbone of our family. He was steady, loyal, and endlessly generous. He was the kind of man who showed up for everyone without ever asking for anything in return. When you walked into the room with Charles, you felt safe, you felt valued, and that's what makes this all so unbearable, because the very person who should have cherished him the most, his own wife, betrayed him in the cruelest, most calculated way imaginable. Charles was a protector by nature, the man who would give you the shirt off his back and then ask what else he could do to help. He loved fiercely, laughed easily, and built his life around the simple but powerful values of family, faith, and hard work. It feels right that this trial comes after those for JJ, Tylie, and Tammy, because he was a true Southern gentleman. I know he would have told us to take care of them first. Lori. First, let me say this. Charles is not your husband. I can't do that. Okay. Sorry. Charles is not your husband. Your disgusting co-monster, Chad, is. The Miss Texas pageant, Wheel of Fortune, Extra on Modern Family, July 31st, 2023. What do they all have in common? They're all days that failed to make you famous or idolized. Infamous? Yes, but never famous, never idolized. You spent your entire life chasing cameras, applause, and validation like oxygen, but here you are, exposed, convicted, stripped of the lies you wrapped yourself in. All your interviews, all your attempts to manipulate, triangulate, and control the narrative, even the one released just last night, have failed. The world sees what I saw in 2019 when you abandoned Charles, Colby, Tylie, and JJ to chase that grotesque shadow of a man, Chad Daybell. You call yourself a mother, a wife, a woman of God. You are none of these things. You are a liar, a fraud, and a murderer. Did you think you could charm your way out of this? Do you believe people can't see through the lies? Do you honestly think that you are smarter, holier, or more special than everyone else? You are not. You are an ordinary, plain, run-of-the-mill, middle-aged woman. You keep saying to anyone who will listen that no one understands because they weren't there. So tell me, Lori, what don't we understand? Was it you who shot Charles? Is that why you kept asking during the trial about testing your hands for gunshot residue? Was that your grotesque way of gloating? You murdered Charles. You confessed to the conspiracy. Do you think we all missed that? You took his phone and played a childish game of keep away and then tried to sell the world that this was a good reason for Alex or you to shoot him. And every single one of us sitting in this courtroom saw right through it. That day started a domino effect, except you tipped the first domino and you kept those dominoes falling until everyone was dead. Charles, Tylie, JJ, Tammy, and the wake of devastation you left for Colby, for our entire families, and for an entire community who watched your evil unfold. You asked me during the trial where I was when Charles was murdered. You asked almost every witness if they were there, or if they saw with their eyes or heard with their ears you and Alex conspiring to murder my brother. No, we weren't, but you're right, as much as I hate to utter those words. And if you are to be believed, neither were you. How dare you desecrate the memory of Charles and your children the way you did their bodies? How dare you blame them for your crimes? We all know what happened, Lori. There is no denying it. We've sat in courtrooms, seen the evidence, seen the wreckage you caused. We have listened to the truth tellers. Nothing is taken out of context. Your land of make-believe is just transparent. The facts and the science don't play games. They tell the truth. How many times Charles was shot, at what angles, and how long he'd been dead before 911 was called. The 47 minutes. Because you were busy trying to manufacture an alibi. Science doesn't lie. You do. Detectives, prosecutors, jurors, advocates, the men and women who had to bear witness to this horror, please stand.
This was amazing that Kay did this. Of course, you saw, she did try to turn towards Lori, and Trina Kay came and told her she couldn't do that. But I was so glad that she recognized these detectives were sitting right behind me. And I'm so glad that they got to be recognized and that she spent some of her time to recognize them. And also she named a lot of other people, advocates, jurors, that could have stood, but the detectives stood, and I'm glad that they did.
Yeah, this took me off guard because I've never seen it done before, and I didn't know she could, but I'm so glad she did.
Yeah, and I think she would have loved for every person, every court staff, Trina Kay, the prosecutors, she said, anybody, the men and women who had to witness all of the evidence in this case, and it's affected all of these people too. And I was so grateful I got to talk with Ron Ball at the gathering, who was the detective he was the one who had his body worn camera on when they did the welfare check on JJ, and we listened to Lori lie her way through that. And he was there, and I got to say thank you to him and to his wife. And I told her, I don't think that law enforcement spouses get enough credit for what they go through, because they have to sit with that trauma too. And
yeah,
and getting to know Tom Evans, who was a juror on her first trial, and getting to know his wife. And he had to come home every day after seeing autopsy footage and other evidence that was incredibly disturbing, and he couldn't talk to her about it. For weeks and weeks and weeks, they couldn't talk about the case. And she was watching it, so she knew what he was seeing. And their lives will never be the same either. And, there have been some really positive, wonderful relationships that have come out of it, but I regret so much that so many people were negatively affected by this, and always will be. It's just tragic. It really is tragic.
It is.
Chuck Considas, Eric Wheeler, Ron Ball, Ray Hermosillo. They are from Rexburg, Idaho, and they were key in bringing justice to you.
So there I am, right there, and there's Nancy Jo. And there's Detective Considas, Wheeler, Ron Ball, and Ray Hermosillo.
Now, where are you again?
I'm right. So Detective Considas is in the blue here. There's my head. There's the back of my head right there.
Oh, okay. That's
and there's
you.
Nancy Jo.
Oh, gotcha.
I would have done my hair better if I thought I was going to be on TV.
I know. I'm sure everyone's talking about that.
Right.
Why didn't Megan do her hair? It looks great to me.
These individuals bear the weight of directly confronting your actions. They took that burden home to their spouses, children, and sleepless nights. They endured tragedy. You didn't just take our loved ones. You sparked a tragedy that now affects countless families. They understand. They were there, and they worked tirelessly to bring you to justice. Chandler PD never believed your bullshit. They didn't charge you immediately because they were busy untangling your web of deception. So you can continue making claims that no one understands because we weren't there. But make no mistake, we stand perfectly. We understand premeditation. We understand conspiracy. We understand fraud, insurance policies, and false alibis. We understand how long bodies lay in the ground while you danced, vacationed, and manipulated for attention. We understand the cost, emotional, financial, spiritual, that all of us have paid to clean up the wreckage of your delusion. Therapy, lost work, trauma, panic attacks, courtrooms and funerals, ashes and empty chairs. You are so selfish, so pathologically self-centered that you can't even see the shockwaves you created in every life around you. Webster's dictionary defines tragedy as a disastrous event. What happened to my family is precisely that, a series of disastrous events, each one engineered by you. You and Chad built a religion of narcissism, two people drunk on the fantasy of being special, chosen, above the law, above humanity itself. You labeled people as dark to justify murder. You wrapped evil in scripture and called it faith. You and Chad murdered your children and spouses and then hid behind a veil of lies. You are not exalted. You are not translated. You are a manipulator, a parasite, and a coward. You have no remorse. Your deflection is disgusting. Your interviews are manipulative. Your faith is counterfeit. You still talk as if you're somehow misunderstood. No, wrong. You're fully understood. We see who you are, a manipulator, a liar, and a destroyer. And the worst thing is, Charles loved you. He protected you, and you repaid him with betrayal and bullets. You left him dead on the floor and then went shopping for flip-flops and a new life with your apocalyptic con man. You tried to erase him, stealing his phone, twisting the narrative, and lying to anyone who would listen. But the truth doesn't lie, Lori, and now the truth has destroyed you. Lori, you have noticed this courtroom is full. It's not because people admire you. It's not because they see instrument in God's hands. It's because you're a sideshow freak, a murderous carnival act. People come to gawk at the monster who thinks she's divine. They don't come to honor you. They come to witness the wreckage of your delusion and to see justice crush it. You've always wanted an audience, but this audience isn't here to adore you. They are here to watch you fall, to watch you stripped of the spotlight you crave, to see your false crown ripped away. You are not a goddess. You are not chosen. You are not powerful. You just thought you could play God and win. The only legacy you leave is this. You will be remembered not as an instrument of God, but as a pitiful cautionary tale of evil and narcissism. Your life will end behind concrete and steel while the world outside remembers JJ's smile, Tylie's strength, Charles's kindness, and Tammy's light. You will be forgotten, except as the sideshow act you've made of yourself, a monster who wanted to be worshipped, but who will only ever be pitied. But the legacy of Charles, JJ, Tylie, and Tammy is here in this courtroom, a new type of family built on love. Colby and his family, Tammy's family, the men and women who battled evil, all of us united, because as Charles said, love always wins. Finally, I want to say this. You once claimed that no one could judge you because they weren't there. Today, everyone is here. The court is here. Justice is here. And now judgment has arrived. May this sentence be as permanent as the graves you filled.
This is one of those moments I wanted to just stand up and cheer. You know,
that wording was incredible, and she tore her up.
She nailed it.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm glad I listened to the whole thing again, because it really was so masterful, the way that she described everything, and it was excellent.
The apocalyptic con man, I loved that.
Yeah, she had so many zingers and just excellent words in there that I just really appreciated. And I've always admired her strength and her spunk and her sass. And she is everything that Lori is not.
Yeah.
And I loved that she talked about all the families coming together and standing together. And I love that she also said to Lori that, you know, these people aren't here because they like you, that they think you're a god. Like, you know, don't be under that delusion. They're not here for that. They're here because you're a sideshow freak. And maybe that's what I'm going to call her from
gawk
now on.
at you.
Yeah, come to gawk
And
at
I
the
love
monster.
that she said, "You say nobody understands. Well, we're all here. Here we are. We're all here.
Yeah,
and we're not buying into your bullshit."
That's right.
Yeah, she really went right to the point.
Yeah. I think I'm going to skip JJ's letter. I thought it was beautiful and amazing. I thought it was brilliant that Kay was able to do that, but I just don't think I can listen to it again right now.
Understandable.
I just have waded through too much this last week, and I'll come back to it at some point. So if you're watching and you want to see it, I will put it separately on my channel with no commentary, because I believe that's how it needs to be heard. And we'll go to Jerry Vallow, one of my favorite people. So yeah, the camera was on Lori this whole time, and she's talking with her investigator. And Kresha mentioned to me that she noticed at one point that Lori was smirking, at one point giggling during this letter this letter from JJ.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry.
I can see how people can snap and just launch towards the defendant when they do that kind of crap, like giggling and being just so brazenly nonchalant and mocking.
Yeah.
I am the son of Charles Vallow. I should be 13 years old now, but I'm forever 7. The impact of my father's death was my murder. And Judge, it is 13 years today that JJ's adoption was finalized, and they moved him immediately right away to Hawaii. And I hope you remember that. I trusted you!
So the camera didn't catch any of that because they were focused on Lori, and they zoomed out just long enough to see Kay walk away. But that was a stunning moment to see her turn and look at Lori dead in the eye, and then Trina Kay jump up to help her leave. And I spoke with Kay about this moment as well, and she said, somebody asked her, what would you have done if Trina Kay hadn't stood up? And she said, I knew that was my signal that I needed to stop. But she said, if that hadn't happened, I probably would have looked at her for a lot longer, and then I would have said more. I had more to say. And she said, I'm glad Trina Kay stood up because I didn't want to keep going on.
Yeah, I'll bet she had a lot more to say.
Yeah. That betrayal of trust, that's the worst thing.
And I think she was saying that from JJ's standpoint, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah, Mommy, I trusted you.
But you could see it both ways too. Kay trusted Lori to take care of her JJ. And JJ trusted his mom. And that's the worst betrayal of all, for a vulnerable child to be betrayed by their own mother, the very person who should give their life for the child. Instead took a life, took 2 lives, took 3 lives, took 4 lives, took 5. We will never know how many.
Yeah. Who knows how many? So
now for Jerry. Jerry is Charles's little brother. I learned that they're just a year apart, and they were very, very close.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning. My name is Jerry Vallow. Charles was my big brother. And wasn't but a few weeks ago, I was sitting out in my garage with the door open. It was raining a little bit, listening to the fireworks in the distance. And all I could think about was everything I've lost and why. And I kept making excuses not to write a statement. But the truth is, there are no words big enough for the impact this has had. And yet here I am. I am a veteran. I served honorably for this country and everything it's supposed to stand for: freedom, independence, and justice. I knew good men that went to war. Some of them came home badly broken. Some came home and couldn't live with the weight of what they carried and ended their lives. Some didn't come home at all. Those men fought for something real, a country with laws that protect the innocent and punish the guilty. That's why I'm here to speak for Charles, my big brother, one of the innocents, because I still believe in that. And Lori shit on all of it. She doesn't deserve to breathe the air those men fought for. She doesn't deserve to sit and play victim when she is the reason we are all here. When I came home from my service overseas, Charles invited me to live with him. He offered a home and support until I adjusted to civilian life again. That's just who he was: giving, loving, supportive, caring. And he was funny, social, and everyone he met became his friends. You couldn't help but be drawn to him. You loved him. He wasn't just my big brother, he was my best friend. We grew up together on the bayous and rivers in South Louisiana, spending countless days and nights camping, fishing, hunting, exploring, and just being kids. We had so much fun. We learned to survive, trust each other, and become men. I miss him every day. He was a devoted father, a teacher, someone who guided and loved his kids with every fiber of his being. All 5 of his children meant the world to him. And he spent his last months fighting for Tylie and JJ because he was a protector. He was a son, a father, a brother, an uncle, a good man. He didn't deserve to die. And he sure as hell didn't deserve to be vilified by the woman that killed him. I keep asking why. Why? Is it about $1 million? He wasn't just a dollar sign to fund Lori's sick game of make-believe. She tried to cash in on his life. And when that didn't work, she brutally murdered her kids for money. And she tried to kill Brandon when he started looking like the next available dollar sign. His murder impacted not only me, but my entire family. She tried to tear us apart, but she couldn't because we're pretty strong, resilient people. It didn't stop with Charles's death. JJ, Tylie, Tammy, all murdered, and Brandon almost lost his life. Innocent lives were stolen, and we all feel the deep pain and loss, and it hurts and will for years to come. Lori is responsible for all of this. This isn't a family tragedy that occurred randomly. It was a deliberate act of evil. This has never been a mission from God. She isn't an instrument in God's hands. She was sleeping with Chad Daybell behind Charles's back while planning his murder. You know what kind of instrument kills a father in cold blood, buries 2 kids in a pet cemetery, and lies through her teeth while doing it? It's called a weapon. And God doesn't use weapons against innocence. She wasn't doing God's work. She was selfish, cruel, and calculated. God didn't send her to commit murder. She used his name to justify evil. That's not God's work. That's blasphemy, plain and simple. She used God's name like a weapon, lied in his name, killed in his name, and now she wants to stand in court and she claims she's doing the Lord's work. She's not some misunderstood woman. She's not some grief-stricken mother. She's not a victim of this story. She wrote her own disgusting make-believe story, and she wrote it in blood. She didn't cry for Charles. She didn't mourn JJ or Tylie, no matter what she says. She erased them. And she didn't give a damn about Tammy. So when she sits there and pretends this is some kind of tragic twist of fate, like she didn't like the fuse, remember that. She didn't just kill Charles. She stole him from everyone who loved him, from his boys, from our family, from me. She didn't just break the law. She pissed all over it and tried to claim righteousness. She started this. She caused this. She wasn't caught in some domino effect. She pushed the first one and kept pushing till there was none left standing. She twisted everything, God, family, and loves. And if she thinks she can twist justice too, don't let her. Don't let her twist away from what she did. She murdered my brother, Charles. Give her what she's earned.
Thank you, sir.
Bravo. Just another moment that I wanted to stand up and cheer. I thought that was brilliantly delivered.
It sure was. Yep.
And when I interviewed Jerry, I said that it was just the right amount of profanity at the right time. I thought just a few well-placed cuss words go a long way. And he told it like it was.
Right.
It was just so real and so authentic and so dismissive of Lori at the same time. It's very clear that he has nothing for her.
Yep. He made his point in an incredible way. And I love that he used these, a little cussing here and there. She pissed all over the law and, it made him human. It humanized him.
Yeah. I really love Jerry. He's great. I call him Uncle Jerry now. Kresha said I could share. So the next phase were all of the statements on behalf of Brandon's trial, victims who were impacted by his attempted murder. And I want to just say that Brandon's parents both spoke and gave beautiful statements. Brandon's mom saying that she forgives Lori. Then Brock, who's Brandon's brother, I would like to play through that one. And then Desiree Smoot, Brandon's sister, Danae Boudreaux, Brandon's sister. And what I want to say about, and also, sorry, Danielle Hackey spoke just before Brandon. Or actually, I should say, sorry, Brandon read a statement from Danielle. The thing that struck me the most about the collective statements from the Budro family were two things. One was just how horribly traumatized they all were by this event and how fearful they were. They were genuinely all scared for their lives, the lives of their children, and the lives of Brandon's children during this entire time, having to send the children over to Melanie, knowing her involvement in it. And I don't think that I really realized until I heard all of these impact statements just how traumatized and affected all of their family members were. I just didn't think about it enough. That's all. Of course, right. Of course I knew that was probably the case, but hearing the details of it, I think, is so important. And that's why I really appreciate this sentencing phase of the trial that gives victims an opportunity to talk about how this has impacted them on a real level, on a daily basis. Some people will flippantly say, well, he's still alive. He's lucky to be alive. They should just all be grateful. Well, they are grateful, but that doesn't mean that they weren't traumatized as well. And another thing I just have to mention is, it's not the trauma Olympics. The Vallow family have not suffered more or less than the Boudreaux family. And none of us gets to say, well, I went through something, but it wasn't as bad as what you went through. The thing is, it affects us all in the same way. And so the impact of it is far reaching and long lasting.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I should say the second thing I wanted to say about the Boudreaux family is they acted in the exact opposite way to Lori's family. And Brandon acted exactly in the opposite way to Lori. I noted this during the trial, that when lies were being told about Brandon, he went directly to the source and confronted her about it.
Mm-hmm.
Where in so many instances, Lori would, tell someone to tell someone, or she would talk about someone instead of talking to someone. And that tends to be a pattern in my family, by the way. People not having the courage to go up and speak to somebody and say and confront them about what it is that they believe. And, that's what I'll say about when we were talking that I said, not everybody loves me. Certainly there are some family members who don't. But my phone line is open to talk about it. And yet nobody has contacted me to confront me with these supposed lies that I've told or with the supposed bad acts that I've done. And I just appreciate so much that the Boudreaux family did the exact opposite thing. They rallied together. They made sacrifices for each other. They showed up for each other. They took time off of work to care for the children that they were trying to protect. They protected the children. They put the children first. And those are all the opposite of what Lori's family did. Exactly the opposite.
Yeah. And all the accusations and the pointed statements you've made towards Lori are indefensible because you've not misstated a single one of them. So I don't think the family can say anything and make any sense.
Yeah, I try to be as accurate as I possibly can with what I say. And I know that I make mistakes sometimes and I mishear things sometimes, but it's never my intention to misrepresent something. So if I have said something that is untrue, rather than just, maybe a different perspective, or maybe I didn't get the detail exactly right. If I say something untrue, I want to be corrected. I want to be confronted and corrected. I really do, because I don't want to believe something that's not true either. And I certainly don't want to spread something that's not true. So,
right.
If I misremember something and somebody petty wants to call that a lie, fine. The people who actually talk to me know my integrity and my intent, and I'm just unbothered by the idea that, if people want to be petty, they can be petty. So I want to play, this is Brock Boudreaux, Brandon's brother.
Thank you, Your Honor. First of all, I want to just say how grateful I am that Alex is a terrible shot and that we get to be here today to talk about my brother who's still living. And he's the only one that was fortunate enough to have that. My name is Brock Budro, and I'm the younger brother of the victim, Brandon Boudreaux. I'm writing on behalf of my wife and myself, and I'm here today to talk about the toll that this heinous crime has taken on our lives, as well as the lives of our family. From the moment I found out my brother was having marital issues, I was there for him, trying to help. He was abandoned by his then wife, Melanie, in Utah, with his children at the end of June 2019, and forced to fly back to Arizona. I offered to help him and flew back to Arizona. When we arrived back at his home, we were both surprised to find his wife already home, having driven back to Utah after abandoning them all there. During that night, I helped the children get to bed and allowed my brother and his wife to try and talk and figure things out. Overhearing their conversations, I realized just how deeply involved Lori, Alex, and Chad were in the failure of my brother's marriage. The next morning, I was talking with Brandon, and he told me how happy he was that I was there because Melanie had called her Uncle Alex the night before. And Brandon had mentioned how he was really scared of Alex and that he was capable of killing someone and had tried before. At the time, I thought my brother was being a bit dramatic. But only a week later, I received the news that Alex had done just that, and he murdered Charles. This was the point where we started beginning to fear for our family's safety. A few months later, the thing my brother had feared the most happened. Alex had attempted to take his life on the orders of Lori. In that moment, our lives changed forever. We could no longer trust that we were safe. We always wondered if someone was coming for Brandon, not knowing just how far these people were willing to go. We were robbed of our sense of safety because of this. We all felt that we needed to get video cameras around our houses, obtain firearms to protect ourselves, and always be watching over our shoulders. As hard as it was for us as his family, I could see how hard it was for Brandon. He was forced to go into hiding, trying to keep his children and himself safe. The toll this took on him was immense. My once fun, energetic, optimistic brother was now a nervous, sad, distraught shell of a man. Our once fun phone calls about future life plans had turned into updates about the case that was proceeding. June 2019 was the beginning of so much sadness in our family's lives. As the story unfolded and things became more public, our family name being so unique started to be recognized and associated with the ongoing trials and investigations. I'm a practicing dentist in the state of Arizona, and now I constantly fear of people Googling my last name. Having things pop up about the case rather than information about me or my practice. I would like to think that this has not affected people deciding whether to come and see me or not, but I'm sure it has. Our lives have now become entangled with a story none of us wanted to be a part of. We are forced to have hard conversations with our young children, trying to explain why someone would want to kill their uncle. This has forced us all to watch as Brandon has had to share custody of his children with a woman we all know was involved in his attempted murder. It has forced us to sit back and watch as our name has been publicly defamed and slandered by that same woman. Somehow, she still walks free, but I hope someday she gets the justice she deserves as well. For now, all we ask is that you recognize the pain and suffering that has come from the actions of all the people involved and give a sentence that is fitting. Thank you.
That really painted a picture to me of everything that his family was going through. And I was grateful for that perspective.
Help me understand why they tried to take Brandon's life. Is it simply because he was married to Melanie?
Yeah, so Melanie is Stacy's daughter, and Stacy died when Melanie was very young. I think she was 6 or 7. I can't remember exactly. And so Melanie, and then Melanie's dad really kept Melanie away from the Cox family because he saw right through them. So when Melanie got a little older, she found Adam, who was a DJ and was easy to find, and got back in touch with the Cox family. And from that time on, she saw Lori as a mother figure, really, and took advice from her, really felt like Lori was a surrogate mom for her. And so Lori, of course, brought Melanie into this little cult. And during the Brandon Boudreaux trial, we learned that Lori poisoned Melanie against Brandon by telling Melanie that Brandon was gay. And I think it was Lori's plan all along to get them separated and then to take Brandon's life because he had a big life insurance policy. And one of the things that came out in Chad's trial is that Chad and Lori wanted Zulema to move up to Rexburg. She wanted everybody to move up to Rexburg so they could all cult together. And Zulema said, I can't leave Arizona. I have a job here. There's no work for me up there. I don't know what would I do for money? And Lori said, well, Melanie's got plenty of money. She's got enough for all of us.
Oh,
and that was referring to she got a large sum from selling the house in the divorce settlement. And then, they were looking forward to the possibility of having more life insurance as well.
Unbelievable. All this over money.
Yeah. Because when Lori was married to Charles, she didn't have to work. He took care of everything. And she was expecting to get his life insurance money, and she didn't. And I think that's probably when Brandon came into the picture for Lori. Like, we've got to get money somewhere, That's just my theory. I don't know if that's real or not, but we never will know because Lori's not going to tell us.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely nuts that they even tried to kill Brandon. And thank heavens Alex wasn't a better shot, because it sounds like just a quarter of an inch more and he would be gone.
Yeah, when he said that, I thought, Alex was a terrible shot. He obviously, missed Tammy, he missed Brandon, but it's scary to think how close he did come. And he was waiting in the back of that Jeep for a very long time because they planned it this way. Melanie and Brandon had a custody exchange. So they knew when Brandon was going to be coming back home. But Brandon outsmarted them without knowing it, because he left the custody exchange, and instead of going straight home, he went to the gym. And so Alex was sitting in the back of the Jeep outside of Brandon's house with the Jeep running for an hour, waiting for Brandon to come home. And he probably got bored, got distracted, maybe didn't see Brandon coming right away, and was not able to get the shot that he wanted, thank goodness. But it's scary to think of how close he did come, even under all of those circumstances.
Yep, he sure did.
Yeah. I also want to say, I mean absolutely no disrespect to Brandon or to his family by not playing every single one of their statements also. I just can't do it. I am at my emotional capacity, but I wanted to do this. It's important to me to recap it, not only for my audience, but just for me personally. I was, of course, fogged by a lot of emotions that day, and it's important to me to go back and revisit this. I have rewatched their statements, and I will post all of their statements for my viewers as well, so that you can, if you want to watch them on this channel, you can. I just want to make sure people understand I'm not intending to disrespect the Budro family by not playing all of their statements right now. I just can't.
Well, no one would blame you.
So I want to hear from Jenny next. That was a sweet moment, Brandon hugging his sister after she gave her statement. I was glad that you guys could see some of those things as they happened.
Yeah.
My name is Jenny Boudreaux, and I am Brandon Boudreaux's wife. First and foremost, I want to thank all those that have spent countless hours in bringing justice to not only Brandon, but to Charles, JJ, Tylie, and Tammy. Today, I stand here today as a voice for the pain and lasting trauma caused by the attempted murder of my husband, Brandon Boudreaux, on October 2nd, 2019, a day that none of us will forget. That morning, Brandon was driving near his newly rented home in Gilbert, Arizona, when a bullet fired by Alex Cox under the direction and planning of Lori Vallow Daybell and other co-conspirators missed his head by merely inches. Just inches. One moment, one shot. A moment that should have taken his life, but didn't. And yet, that near-death experience has forever changed his life and mine. When I met Brandon, I saw a man with one of the biggest hearts I have ever known. But it was a heart that had been bruised deeply and wounded by betrayal from those he trusted most. To be hunted by people who were supposed to love and protect him, his own family, left scars that go far beyond physical danger. It robbed him of a sense of safety. It shattered his ability to fully trust. It forced him to live in fear. For months, Brandon was living in hiding, moving from place to place, always looking over his shoulder. The people who wanted him dead still were out there, and he knew they were not finished. After the horrifying news of the murders of Charles and Tammy, and especially Tylie and JJ, children he loved, and he knew, Brandon had countless sleepless nights. The fear became constant. I will never forget the night when Alex and another showed up at his family home, searching for his children and Brandon. The fear I heard in Brandon's voice was like nothing I had ever heard. He believed that he and his children could be killed. This was his new reality. These crimes weren't just about money or power or twisted religious beliefs. They were also about destroying families, destroying lives. Lori and her co-conspirators tried to take away a father from his children. This is a man who reads scriptures with them, tucks them to bed at night, plays games with them, supports their dreams, encourages them, and loves them with all of his heart unconditionally. He would do anything for his children. Had that bullet not missed, these beautiful children, now my beloved bonus children, would have grown up without a father's guidance, his protection, and his love. No child should ever be denied that. Brandon was deeply traumatized, and yet he continued to show up for his children, for truth and for justice, even on the first day of our honeymoon, which was meant to be joyful and sacred. I watched my new husband weep in a car after having to identify the remains of a boy he once loved and tried to protect. That boy was JJ, the cousin of Brandon's former wife. the son of the very woman who tried to orchestrate Brandon's murder. That weight, that moment is still and always will be heavy in our lives. He has survivor's guilt. He sometimes wondered why he survived and the other did not. He would say, I would switch places with Charles, with JJ, with Tylie, and even Tammy so that they could live. This is the kind of person Brandon is. He would do anything for the people he loves. Brandon carries emotional scars of attempted murder, betrayal, and loss every day, and yet he remains kind. He remains faithful, and he remains a father that his children are proud of. Today, I am proud to stand beside him as his wife, his best friend, and a witness of his resilience and his courage. The truth has finally come to light, and although it has taken many years to get here, I pray that justice will be served properly. Evil tried to take away, tried to silence Brandon, but it failed. He is still here. He is still standing, and because of that, so are we. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was really beautiful and heartbreaking. It was so hard to hear about Brandon identifying JJ on what was supposed to be their honeymoon. When I learned that he had done that for Kay and Larry, I watched the documentary. I think it was called Doomsday Mom, Where Are the Children? It's the Amazon Prime documentary that was done by Felicia DeWall. There's some beautiful footage there of Brandon showing up for Kay and Larry in their hotel room in Idaho and offering to go down and identify JJ's remains so that they didn't have to.
Oh, gosh.
And that tells you everything that you need to know about Brandon Boudreaux. Selfless and kind, the kind of man who would do anything for his family.
You know, it's just an observation of mine that all of those who are speaking on behalf of Brandon are actually more tearful than the others. And I think it's probably because, you know, the others are more angry. And sometimes anger will eliminate tears. And I think this family is crying probably through gratitude for the fact that, you know, Brandon is still living. And I'm sure he will suffer with survivor's guilt for the rest of his days. You know, just another way that he's affected by the murderers.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't suffer with it. I know it will probably always be in his mind, but I hope that he gets some really good mental health therapy so that he can learn to set it aside and have some peace and some happiness and some joy in his life again with this being over.
Hopefully.
So this was it a week ago? My brain is completely fogged over the sentencing. It was the 25th, so it was 5 days ago, right?
Yeah, it was Friday, last
was?
Friday. Yeah. Because we're at Wednesday, so it'll only be 5 days ago, yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember. It seems like so long ago. It was Friday, I came home Saturday. So, yeah, it feels like so long ago. But I think today is the first day that I started to feel real change happening in my mind and my body again, where I can think about a future that has nothing to do with Lori. I don't have to think about the next sentencing or the next case or the next whatever. I mean, even if Melanie does get charged, which I hope she does, it won't involve Lori, you know, so it's just now starting to be on the edges of my consciousness that she's gone and she's done and we don't have to think about her or talk about her anymore. And, you know, there are people will continue to comment all over. Why are you still talking about this case? Well, because I lived it. I'm wrapping up some loose ends. I'm probably going to continue to reference it. And I was just thinking about Trisha's hilarious end of the world 24-hour live stream that she's probably going to keep doing every year. And I probably will pop in to that too, because I love her. But nobody gets to tell anybody how to grieve, and nobody gets to tell anybody when is the right time to move on. And Kresha has said she's never going to stop talking about it. And I don't blame her. There's so much more to dig into and discover, and she's going to keep talking about it. And I'm glad she is, because we can never forget how we got here. And that's important to me.
It's been tattooed on their brains and in their hearts, and it's become a part of their lives. Yep. And a major chapter in their history.
Yeah. The scars fade, but they never completely go away. And, right. I was talking with my sister about revising my book, and I said, I think I'm going to, include all of the Lori stuff as well. And she said, it makes me really sad to hear that, because your story is so much cooler than hers. But my book was always about healing from trauma, and I've had to heal from this too. This series of events started happening when I was just finishing my intensive outpatient therapy, and it was 12 weeks of 9 hours of therapy a week. And that's what I needed to heal from my childhood trauma. And then this happened.
Yeah.
And
well, don't write that last chapter yet either, because I have a pretty good idea that the whole Lori Vallow story isn't completely over. I think that there's going to be things happening with Lori Vallow in prison that is going to make news. That's just, I'm speculating, but I mean, your story is incredible, but you didn't make national news. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. My book, the reason for me writing my book was always to help other survivors know that it's possible to move on and have a happy life. And I think that healing from that trauma, from the trauma of being trafficked as a child and abused, and growing up in an emotionally abusive, emotionally neglectful household, and then being in a emotionally and physically abusive marriage, and healing from that to be just barely healed and knocked down by this. And when I say knocked down, I just mean I had to go to therapy over this too. I had to do EMDR over this too. There's been a lot of grief and a lot of tears and a lot of suffering that have happened. And so I want now people to know that when you come out of healing from trauma, it's not over. You never stop feeling pain, but your ability to overcome it becomes even greater. And so when you think that you can't get through something, you actually can. You're stronger and more resilient than you think. So that's always going to be my message with my book. And I think that including Lori's effect on my life is important, because it has to do with healing too.
You've got a very valuable story to share with the world, for sure. And I know that there will be so many people that benefit from it, even if you didn't mention Lori. But that's a major part of your life. That's part of the history and part of the trauma that you're writing about.
Yeah.
I say, throw that in there, even if it's just a chapter, throw that in there, because that's a major chapter.
Well, people who have called me a random cousin and said, pretending to be all affected by this story. The reason I'm so affected is because my time with the Coxes had a profound impact on my growing up. It was a big part of my life. My cousins were important to me. My aunts and uncles were important to me. And my family, just in general, I wanted that perfect Mormon picture of the forever family with no empty chairs.
You lived with them. You spent time with them. They were true family to you. My cousins now are random cousins. So I don't know any of them.
Yeah.
They were an integral part of your life, and vice versa. So it's there's nothing random about it. This has a huge impact on you and on everyone who knows you, who really knows you.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Thank you. Well, I want to play Brandon's statement.
Your Honor, thank you for giving me my time today and for listening to all these people who are my family now and who have gone through this with me. On October 2nd, Lori Daybell, someone I considered family, conspired with others to shoot at me, an act that not only endangered my life, but it threatened to destroy the sacred family unit that I cherish for my children. Had this heinous crime succeeded, my children would have been left to face a lifetime of grief, robbed of the love, stability, and spiritual guidance I provide as their father. The betrayal by someone connected to my family has left me battling overwhelming emotions over the years. I felt fear, paranoia. I lived with constant vigilance, loneliness, regret, sadness, depression, anger, heartache, and embarrassment. All while striving to remain a beacon for my children. I didn't want them to see. The word family in Latin was used as a word for servant, familia. How beautiful to think of those who are family as those who we serve or who serve us freely without the thought of reward. I try to live this truth every day, serving my children with selfless dedication, nurturing their dreams, teaching them resilience, and providing a foundation of love. Lori Daybell's actions sought to tear me from the sacred role, leaving my children without the father who serves them with unwavering devotion. Trust is something that is intangible. It can almost, excuse me, it can almost be measured in interactions with others by the speed and comfort with which we speak. We can see this inside our families. When it's present, it creates beautiful, safe spaces where human beings can grow and feel loved. As a father, I strive to cultivate this trust, fostering a haven where my children feel secure to grow and express themselves. Had I been killed, this trust would have been shattered, leaving my children vulnerable to fear, uncertainty, and struggling to rebuild the safety that they deserve. I believe the family unit is ordained of God, and as such, it can be the most safe and sacred space we have in this life. I was raised in such a unit by parents who created this for me. And my life's greatest desire is that one day my children will look back and say that I created that for them. This divine calling gives me a drive to provide a nurturing and sacred environment for my children, mirroring the love I received. The choices that were made on October 2nd by Lori and others attempted to end my life. They threatened to rob my children of this God-ordained sanctuary, denying them the legacy and safety of love I strive to build. Research underscores devastating impact of losing a father in early childhood. 20 to 30% of bereaved children develop clinical depression or anxiety, grappling with abandonment. It can hinder their ability to form healthy relationships. My children would have faced these scars and many more. Their sense of security would have been destroyed. The violent act orchestrated by Lori would have taken this. Additionally, children who lose a parent experience academic setbacks, social withdrawal. Studies show that Such children face socioeconomic challenges as adults, threatening the stable future I work tirelessly to provide. Besides my children, I have extended family for whom this conspiracy's toll I will never truly know. There's no measurement system for our grief, for our stress, for their pain and their trauma. They carry a burden that was no responsibility of their own. They're good people, all of them. But they showed up. They understood what family meant. They postponed work. They postponed life. They postponed fun. They even put out their own children and their own spouses. I had to ask them and their families to keep me safe and put them in jeopardy. I was scared to stay with them for months after they shot at me and kept trying to find me. I was continually pursued when I asked my new wife to marry me. I had to do so, knowing the burden I brought to our marriage. A life filled with unwanted attention, trauma, from a conspiracy I knew nothing about until it was almost too late. This burden will never go away, but we will learn to deal with it. We can never go back. We can't fix these things. There's no way to make right all the injustice and suffering that we've endured. So my greatest hope is that we can protect others from facing it. I hope those who participated can be removed from a place where they can have a chance to hurt anyone ever again in the future. No one deserves to live a life of fear and trauma. I have friends who stood up and put their lives on hold to help me and my children. I don't know how to convey to you the fear they must have felt to just be involved with me or around me, as others conspired and continued to come looking for me. I can't imagine the impact it had on them after the fact or during, and some of them had to distance themselves to keep their family safe. Finally, this overwhelming toll and conspiracy has had so much effect on those who are called upon to uphold our laws, and to those that I employed to try to protect my family. I would include attorneys, law enforcement, juries, yourself, your staff, all the people who have to deal with this. We've spent countless hours and precious resources from our community's taxes, mine and my family's personal finances, striving to prove exactly what happened, and most importantly, to keep children safe. All of this could have gone to more productive and beneficial things to help others, but it had to be diverted because of selfishness and self-centered conspirations. Your Honor, I'm a believer in forgiveness, and I believe it can be relieving for people to let go of the feelings that I've been describing, to give them away to their Savior, so that there's more room for good feelings and things that can come in this life. I try to practice this. I'm not perfect at it, but I have found relief in it. But I do not believe that this means that we can trust those who commit crimes to continue to have freedom that they had before. I choose to forgive Lori for myself so that I can be able to be a better father to those children I described. Be a better husband for my new wife. A better son and brother to these wonderful people who came. And a better neighbor and friend to those people who were there for me when I needed it most. But I have never seen any remorse or acknowledgement from Lori. or any of her conspirators. Only denial, shaming, and accusation. I would never feel safe if she has freedom. I will always fear her for what she would try to do again to hurt my family. The trauma of this attack has already shaken my children's sense of safety. It's forced me to fight through pain, and it's forced me to work to restore trust for them in this life that we live. Lori's conspiracy was an assault on the essence of familia or selfless love. It's an assault on trust, and it's an assault on the divine sanctity of what a family is and what I grew up in. I would urge you to recognize this harm, this act that was intended to inflict pain upon myself, my family, my children, who deserve to grow up in a sacred, safe space. And I would ask you to protect us as I let go of those angry feelings and all those things. I would ask you to protect us, keep us safe, keep these people who deserve it safe. And I just ask that, and thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there were three main things that really stood out to me about Brandon's statement. And the first is that he talked about the impact of the death of a father on children, and statistically what happens to children who grow up without a father, or mainly children who grow up with a father or who have a father taken from them through death or through murder.
Right.
I think that's something that a lot of people probably fail to consider, is the long-lasting impact on the children that are involved in this case. And I've thought about Brandon's children so many times during this case. And what is it going to be like for those, I think his two oldest children, to grow up knowing that, well, first of all, having to find a way to tell your kids that their mom was involved in labeling them dark, and what happened to their cousins who were labeled dark, and to grow up with knowing that their mom tried to have their dad killed. I mean, I just can't imagine having to, the preparations you would have to go through to try and do that in a healthy psychological way for the kids, in an age appropriate way, and to call in the help of professionals for that, because I just can't imagine that.
Well, and they don't have the closure
right.
of the mom being locked away, or
right.
So I can understand that it would be a continual threat for them. Yeah, yet. Exactly.
I've mentioned this before. I had a few brief conversations with Melanie after Lori's first trial. She reached out to me, and I won't go into the details of what we talked about, but I proceeded with a lot of caution because I really didn't know how involved she was in all of this. And I really didn't know the details of the shooting of Brandon. I just knew that it was Alex that did it. I didn't know Melanie was involved in that at the time. And I think Melanie reaching out, it actually was after I was on Mormon Stories, and she was talking about, where her faith was at that time. And the only thing I really wanted to ask her was, did you really believe it then? And do you still believe it now? Because I wanted to know if her kids were safe. And, she was going to have another baby with her new husband and everything. And we exchanged text messages for a brief time, and then we had one phone conversation. And after that, she backed away. And I didn't make any effort to try and pursue her. And then once Chad's trial came up and I saw the evidence of how involved she was, I was horrified. And regret now that I even entertained talking with her before I knew all of the facts. So anyway, I just want to say that, again, I'll just say it again, that if Melanie needs support, she needs help, and she wants to go confess and plead guilty, I'll be right there by her side. I'll do that with her. Because that's what real justice would be. What real justice would be to not put this family through another trial. So
that's very kind of you.
I don't know if it's kind or stupid, but I just.
Well, it's not stupid. It's you're doing what you feel would be best for the family.
Well, I guess the end of it would be if Melanie needs somebody to go through that with her so that she doesn't plead not guilty and put the whole family through a trial, then I will do that 100%. I'll do it every day. I'll sit right there next to her. But if she wants to claim not guilty and put the family through a trial, I just don't think that's justice. I don't think that's right. No. So anyway, there were two other things that Brandon said that I thought were very important to note. And one was that he believes forgiveness is about letting go of bad feelings so that there's more room for good feelings. And that's the best description of forgiveness I think I've ever heard.
Yeah, that really is a good description of it. And letting go of bad feelings, unfortunately, you're still not letting go of maybe a lingering fear. So that's why I feel for them,
Yeah. But he did note that, just because you forgive someone doesn't mean that you go on trusting them and allowing them in your life.
Right. Yeah. I guess I feel bad that even though he's taking the high road and trying to forgive Melanie, that certainly can't eliminate the fear he may have, because who knows what kind of influence Lori had on Melanie and what is in her heart, truly in her heart.
Right. Yeah. The last thing that he said is he asked the judge to protect us while we go through this process of learning to forgive. And I thought that was really beautiful. I thought that was the best request that you could make of a judge. Please protect our family from this person so we don't ever have to be in fear like this again. That was wonderful. It was perfectly said. And I did get a chance to talk with Brandon and Jenny at the family gathering and just express my gratitude to him for his statement, for what he said, and for being instrumental in hiring a private detective and getting all of these puzzle pieces put together so that law enforcement could see how it was all connected. And I believe that he played a really big role in all of that. And I'm very grateful that he did, so that we could be at this place.
And I don't think he tried to belittle Lori either. He could have had anger and started taking jabs at her and being, as making the most hurtful comments he can think of. But he pretty much took the high road on that and
he did.
just expressed, his gratitude for all the people who helped him, and didn't even seem to concentrate on Lori's end of this.
Right. Gave her nothing. And I love that. Well, whenever I get upset, Valkyrie wants to be in my lap, and she is not a lap dog. Get down, you silly. There's no room for you on this chair. I love you.
Yeah. She knows when Mama's hurting.
Yeah. This is everybody coming back here, and Lori whispering with her. And this is the moment where she caught my eye.
Please be seated.
And I just looked away.
Yep. If I could change one thing about all of this, like I said, it would be that there was a camera on Lori's face the entire time. Have a split screen.
Yeah. I think that might have infuriated me, actually.
Probably, yeah.
Lori Vallow Daybell, in the jury trial for Charles Vallow, told the jury that the case and murder was about a family tragedy. In her next trial, she told the jury, again in the shooting of Brandon Boudreaux, that this was a tragedy. And while she's been in custody, she has agreed to speak to the media 4 times. And she has again spouted off that this was a family tragedy. A tragedy is a disastrous event, a calamity, a misfortune. Synonyms for tragedy are accident, catastrophe, disaster, misfortune, or mishap. A family tragedy does not involve premeditation. A family tragedy does not involve the intentional killing of a person. A family tragedy does not involve working with an accomplice to commit first-degree premeditated murder. And a family tragedy does not involve conspiring with others to kill. Lori Vallow Daybell has evoked the words family tragedy, but her actions show her to be a cold-blooded murderer. Even more disturbing than Lori Vallow Daybell's attempts to fashion the murder of her husband, Charles Vallow, and the shooting of her nephew-in-law, Brandon Boudreaux, as a tragedy is the way she has twisted religion and fashioned it as a justification for her actions. The reality is this defendant is the same as every other murder defendant. The motives we usually see in murder cases, money, sex, are exactly what motivated this defendant for the murder of Charles and the attempted murder of Brandon. Although this defendant denies it, her text messages and her own actions show that these were her motives. Lori Vallow Daybell's motive for helping to try to kill Brandon Boudreaux was to help Melanie, the woman who called Lori Vallow mom and called Chad Daybell dad or daddy. Just like with Charles, Lori and Chad used their twisted religion to claim that Brandon was dark, possessed, and therefore his death would be justified. Brandon's death would have given Melanie money, the same motive as with Charles. The only difference was this money was for Lori's, quote, daughter, Melanie. The court has presided over these 2 trials and has heard all of the evidence. The court has accepted the verdicts from both juries. And this court accepted this defendant's admission of statutory aggravating factors in both cases: the presence of an accomplice, the use of a deadly weapon, and for Charles's trial, the infliction of emotional harm on Charles's family. The court is legally permitted to find any other aggravating factors and to give each of them the appropriate weight or value. Emotional harm is a very strong aggravating factor that exists for both Charles's family and Brandon and his family. But how do you give the appropriate weight or value to the aggravating factor of emotional harm? The defendant admitted it exists, but that doesn't provide this court with the facts to really weigh the harm that this defendant sentenced these families to. So I want to start first with Charles's family and their emotional harm. Charles Vallow has 5 siblings. He has nieces and nephews. He has 2 sons from his first marriage, Cole and Zach. He had JJ and Tylie and Colby, and he had so many friends. You've heard from Charles's sisters and brothers. Charles regularly visited them. He talked with them regularly, and each sibling has suffered extreme harm as a result of this defendant. We didn't hear from Bobby today, one of Charles's brothers. When I first spoke with Bobby, he told me a story of March of 2019. Charles was visiting. Bobby talked to Charles, and Charles told him that Lori was trying to kill him and that she was going to kill him for his insurance money. Bobby told me how Charles was crying as he spoke and how difficult it was for him to talk to him about this. Bobby told me how much he misses Charles and that it felt like someone had cut off an arm or a leg. That's the pain that he suffers to this day. When I spoke with Charles's brother, Jerry, I learned how Jerry looked up to his brother and literally followed him around as a child. How they shared a love of baseball, and Charles, who was a semi-pro, tried to help his brother learn to be a better player. This is a loss that Jerry still feels every day. When I spoke with Charles's sister, Susan, she told me a story about how close her son was to his Uncle Charles, and the reaction that he had when she had to tell him that his Uncle Charles had been killed, how it devastated him. When I first met Kay and her husband, Larry, I could see the exhaustion in their eyes after going through the trials in Idaho. Kay and Charles were exceptionally close, and it was clear to me that Kay would do whatever was needed to ensure that her brother got justice. And she has been here many, many days. But one of the most disturbing parts of this case that gives so much weight to the aggravating factor of emotional harm and shows how callous, how self-centered, how uncaring, and how narcissistic this defendant is the text messages that she sent to Charles Vallow's sons, Zach and Cole, on July 12th, the day after Charles died. She let them know via a text message that their dad was dead. She wrote, quote, "Hi, boys. I have very sad news. Your dad passed away yesterday. I'm working on making arrangements, and I'll keep you informed with what's going on. I'm still not sure how to handle things. Just want you to know that I love you, and so did your dad." One of Charles's sons texted back, "Lori, what happened?" Lori Vallow knew that Alex Cox had shot and killed Charles, but instead of being honest or caring about his sons, she lied and told them, "We are still waiting on the ME report. I'll let you know more when I can." Charles's sons texted again and again, and at one point, one of them indicated, "You can't just tell us Dad died and disappear." On July 15th, one of Charles's sons texted Lori and said, quote, "Okay, Lori, it's been 3 days. You let us know our father passed away over a text message. 3 days and we haven't heard from anyone. The only information we have is the one text from you saying he passed away. You disappeared after that. We need any information you have. What happened? When did it happen? How did it happen? Where is he now? Are there any funeral plans? We talked to him all the time, and now he's gone. He was our dad, and we loved him very much. We deserve answers." Lori Vallow Daybell never answered their questions about what happened to their dad. Instead, she lied to them and said she was planning to cremate Charles and take all of them to Hawaii to spread his ashes. Instead, this defendant FedExed Charles's ashes to Louisiana and took Chad Daybell to Hawaii. This court has heard from just a handful of the people who loved and cherished Charles. There are more in the courtroom and many more who could not be here. Each one of them will never be complete again. This defendant damaged every one of Charles's family members and friends when she helped orchestrate his murder. This court is in possession of lifetime injunctions for Susan Vallow, Jerry Vallow, and Kay Woodcock. The state asks that you sign those and serve them on the defendant. The state also provided to the defendant hard copies of the restitution requested by Kay Woodcock for travel, food, and housing, all the things she had to do to be here in this court. The total amount of restitution for Kay is $8,949.52. The state asks that you order that restitution. The court also heard from Brandon Boudreaux and his family. Brandon survived his attack, but he suffered for months, fearing he would be killed. Brandon left Arizona to hide from Lori Vallow, Alex Cox, and Melanie Boudreaux Pulowski. Brandon is the person who tied this case to Charles's murder, and he alerted the police when he saw that Chad Daybell's wife had died, and he knew all of these things were connected. Imagine living in absolute fear that you could be shot and killed at any given time by people who were your family. Knowing a bullet had hit your car just a couple inches above your head. This is the emotional harm that this defendant thrust upon Brandon and his family. The court is in possession of lifetime injunctions for Brandon Boudreaux, and the state asks that you sign it and have it served upon the defendant. Brandon asks to keep restitution open. He will be requesting that later. As I said earlier, the court has to weigh all of the aggravating factors that have been stipulated to by this defendant, all of the aggravating factors laid out in the state's sentencing memorandum, and the aggravating factors expressed to this court by the next of kin and victims against any alleged mitigating factors this defendant might present. There is no doubt that the aggravating factors substantially outweigh any alleged mitigation. The volume and weight of this defendant's actions and the aggravating factors support running each of these defendants' convictions consecutively to the others. Because of all of the aggravation, this defendant's actions, the state requests that this court run Brandon Boudreaux's case consecutively to Charles Vallow's case, and that these two conspiracy to commit first-degree murder convictions from Arizona be run consecutively to the sentences in the defendant's Idaho murder case, CR 22-21-1624. Thank you.
So I'm not going to play Lori's statement. I don't even want to listen to her answer the judge. So I'm going to do that at another time on my channel. But there are a few things I wanted to note about Trina K's statement, which, by the way, I don't think it's going too far to say that I love her.
She is an incredible lady.
She's a bad
and
bitch,
an
man.
incredible attorney. Yeah.
Is.
She's a kick-ass bad bitch, right?
Yeah, she really
I love
is.
I love that she coined the name of the religion, a twisted religion. Gene and I thought that would make a good rock band name.
Yeah, Twisted Religion. Yeah. She is absolutely stunning in court with the way she presents herself and her arguments. She's concise in the way she speaks. She is, I don't have enough good words to describe her other than to say bad bitch. You know, she's immaculately presents herself. Her suits fit her perfectly, like they're tailored to her. They probably are. Her hair is gorgeous. She comes back into the family room afterwards and tells it exactly like it is, including well-placed cuss words. And I just have to say that she showed up to the family party, and I had to point out that I have the exact same blouse as her. So she has, she and I have excellent taste.
Well, I saw her and I thought, I'll bet Megan wears some of the same clothes she wears.
No, you didn't. But she did, I did admire her outfits every day and her shoes and all of that. She just, I just mean, she's incredibly professional. She's excellent at what she does. And I think many, many people have probably been put behind bars because of her skill and her accuracy, her intellect. And she just cuts right through it and lays it down there. But go ahead.
If I were ever behind her in line, I would definitely recognize her. I don't know if I'd recognize her from the front, because mostly when I've seen her,
the back of her head,
she's looking at the judge. So,
yeah.
But yeah.
I especially loved that Bobby wasn't able to be there that day, and Jerry told us that, you know, he was working on a really big job, and that's why he couldn't be there. But I loved that she gave him a voice, and I loved that she gave Zach and Cole a voice. She read their words to Lori, what they said to her. She shamed Lori by reading the text messages and the responses. And I really thought that was a masterful way to get that done. What struck me about those text messages was Lori's cruelty. The type of cruelty that it takes to tell your kids that their dad died over a text message. Just.
Yep. Mission accomplished, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know, because I know that she was trying to put that knife in and turn it. And
yeah,
she did it appropriately, very well. And it even made me even more pissed off when, you know, to hear her express that.
Right. And not only that, and a lot of people don't know this, or it hasn't come into trial. I've known this for a while because Kresha and I have talked, but the abject cruelty that it takes to FedEx the remains of Charles to his sister at her place of work. Just beyond anything I can even imagine. That I can't even imagine that thought coming into my head, much less executing it. And Lori did it. It just is insane. I wanted to mention also the injunctions. This means that Lori is forever forbidden to contact Jerry, Susan, Kay, Brandon, and Jenny. She may not do anything to contact them at all. Those are permanent injunctions. And then she is asking for restitution. And Kay, you know, she said, I didn't even include my therapy or my whatever. When they said that number, it was incredibly low. And I was like, maybe she can amend it. I don't know. They've talked about that. And then Brandon has not finished his restitution. And that's going to come up here in a second too, which infuriated the entire court, because Judge Baresi really wanted her to waive her appearance for the restitution hearing. Since Brandon's not done with his restitution, it has to happen at a later time. And Lori refused to waive her appearance. And he was like, well, you know, you need to allow your advisory council to appear on your behalf, because I'm not going to extradite you from Ohio or from Idaho for a restitution hearing. That's not going to happen.
Where is this restitution supposed to come from?
Well, Lori is indigent, meaning, you know, they seized all of the money that she had, whatever money that was. I think they've seized the life insurance funds that Chad got from Tammy. And I know that Alex made away with some cash, which he passed on to Zulema, which I don't know if they seized that or not. But she doesn't have any money, and that's the whole thing. But she can't profit from her crimes. She claims that she's writing a book and that it's going to make, or no, not that she's writing a book. She claims that she's writing scripture, that this whole part of her life is going to be scripture, really good scripture. And that's what Jesus told her.
Oh my gosh.
And so I think she's going to try and publish a book. And if there's, the thing is, the publishing house is the one that makes the most money off of book sales. The authors only make about 40% of the book sales. And so I'm sure that there's a publisher out there that's going to be willing to publish her book. But she can't profit from it. So if there are any proceeds from the sale of her scripture, then it will go to the victims first.
Gotcha.
Not only that, but if people put money on her account at the jail, for example, you could put money on a prisoner's books so that they can purchase things at the commissary, like toiletries and cosmetics and things like that. So if anybody does put money on her books, 30% of that goes to the victims first, and she doesn't get it. So,
oh, good.
But we will talk about the very deep hole of the finances here in a second after Judge Baresi gives his statement. So I want to listen to that. I'm going to fast forward over Lori because I don't want to listen to her. And I want to hear what Judge Baresi has to say because he was very, very kind and addressed all of the family members and everything. And I want to make sure that we hear that.
And for the listeners who may not have watched this, I love that the judge, while Lori was speaking, contradicted some of the things she said and said, that's wrong. That's wrong.
Yes.
It's
Yes,
like,
he did.
You go judge.
Yes, he interjected, I think at least twice. I don't know if there was a third one. I don't remember, but I remember at least twice he said, well, that's not correct. And then, he basically just contradicted what Lori was saying. So I appreciated that he did that. Oh, Lori, you're muted. We can't hear you. Lori, oh, that's so sad that she's muted. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Lori.
In this day and age where truth seems to matter little to our talking heads on the news and to our politicians, I'm proud that this trial court and through our jury trials, we draw on the collective wisdom of jurors to determine the truth. As I said in my jury instructions to the jury, it is their job to determine the truth. The defendant spent several minutes talking about statistics and being prevented from presenting her side, and that is not the truth. Maricopa County is a court of innovation. We virtually screened hundreds of jurors, and we kicked off jurors from service that had ever even heard of Lori Vallow. So when she says that she couldn't get a fair trial in Maricopa County, that is not the truth. Your cases involved 24 separate jurors who deliberated and reached verdicts on these two cases. They represent a broad cross-section of society, which means these two verdicts represent the decisions of our community, not the view of a single person, not the view of a single prosecutor, and not the view of a judge. The collective decision-making of juries helps to reduce individual biases and errors in judgment. 12 jurors in the first case unanimously agreed that proof beyond a reasonable doubt established you conspired to kill Charles Vallow. And 12 separate jurors in the second case, again with no prior knowledge of you whatsoever, no knowledge of your notoriety, unanimously agreed you conspired to have Brandon Boudreaux killed. Many people have asked why the state bothered to extradite you and bring you to Arizona, given the sentences that you received in Idaho. Trials are not just about seeking accountability or punishment from those who have committed crimes, but to give the victims of crimes justice and acknowledgement of the impact of being a victim. Justice demands not only recognition of the pain inflicted, but a firm response that upholds the dignity of every victim harmed by the actions of someone who has shown blatant disregard for humanity. You've left a wake of destruction stretching from Louisiana, across Texas, Arizona, up to Idaho and back again. Anytime a person victimizes a single individual, the ripple effects of their actions extend far beyond the immediate harm. And you have not victimized just a single victim, but many. You've shattered lives, you've undermined trust, you've sowed fear in the hearts of many. I can't imagine what Brandon and his family went through for those months, hiding, Charles's family wondering who's next. Is someone coming for them? Jenny said a lot of the things I was already going to say to you, Brandon. I'll just touch on a couple of them. I had wondered during the trial whether you suffer from survivor's guilt, and she confirmed that for me today. I also remember looking at you in the back of the courtroom trial, and just, you have this look about you of a wounded individual. I hope you can heal someday. To Charles's family, I just want to share with you that I'm sorry for your loss. Charles seemed like a great all-around guy. One of the exhibits that was put up during the first trial, I noticed something. He and I share the same birthday. So I'll remember him on my birthday. I've seen many, many cases in my career where someone faces a long prison sentence for what amounted to one split-second bad decision. You are not that person. The amount of contemplation, calculation, planning, manipulation that went into these crimes is unparalleled in my career. Your powers of manipulation are profoundly destructive, one that undermines trust, distorts truth, and can erode the very foundations of healthy relationships and society. The impact of your manipulation has been devastating, insidious, and far-reaching, and perhaps still unknown. One can't help but wonder if Alex died as a result of the extraordinary burdens that you placed upon him. No one will ever know. You preyed on the vulnerability of those around you, JJ, Tylie, Alex, Melanie, others. And today I heard about Colby. You specialized in exploiting the empathy and goodwill of others, turning those virtues into tools of control and harm. I think that over time, as a result of being subjected to your manipulation, those people lost their sense of self and their ability to distinguish truth from falsehood. In the face of such profound damage, a long prison sentence is not merely a punishment. It is a necessary affirmation that our society values justice, protection, and the sanctity of human life. You just referenced a Bible verse or a verse recently about the prisoners shall go free. That is not a literal verse. That is a verse about people that accept Jesus can be in prison and they will go free when they die and go to heaven. But it will take an act of God for you to go free. In short, you should never be released from prison. Eventually, the camera that you seek out so much, the media requests, will lessen over time and you'll fade into obscurity. The state has requested that I find additional aggravation. The court does find that in CR 2021-001704, the offense was committed in the expectation that you would receive pecuniary gain. In the CR 2022-001242 case, the court finds the emotional harm suffered by Brandon and his family to be immeasurable. The sentences on those aggravating factors alone will be justified. The state also asked to find an aggravating factor of a prior felony conviction within 10 years of this offense. However, I'm hesitant to do that just because of the way that statute reads, that the offense had to be committed before the date of the offense on these two crimes, which it wasn't. So the court will decline to find that aggravating factor. However, as I said, the substantial amount of harm to the victims and the victim's family, emotional, financial, and otherwise, are immeasurable and justifies consecutive sentences. Ms. Vallow, what's your position on Ms. Woodcock's restitution request of $8,949.52?
I just received it from my advisory council and I'd like to get a chance to look at it. So I know that the restitution from Brandon hasn't been turned in yet, so we'll look at that and I can discuss it with my advisory council.
Would you want to waive your appearance for a restitution hearing in the future and have your counsel handle that?
I don't see why I couldn't appear by Zoom.
I think my request would be just to leave, not waive her appearance at this time, but if there ends up being some restitution hearing, I can reach out to her and decide if she wants to be here for that.
I'm not going to have her extradited from Idaho for a restitution hearing if she wants to appear. So that's my issue here. She may be able to appear virtually, I don't know.
Because at this time, we don't have the restitution from Mr. Boudreaux. So.
All right. I'm going to set a status conference regarding restitution as to Kay Woodcock. We'll set that in a few moments. If you agree to it prior to that date, we'll vacate it. If not, we'll have to talk about setting a restitution hearing. The court will also, at the request of Brandon Boudreaux, issue a lifetime injunction that prevents you from having any form of contact whatsoever with him for the rest of your life. The court will also issue an injunction on behalf of Susan Vallow, Kay Woodcock, and Jerry Vallow that likewise prohibits you from having any form of contact with them for the rest of your life. You'll be served with those injunctions later today. In each case, it's ordered that you pay a $9 victim compensation fund assessment, a $20 probation assessment, a $2 victims' rights enforcement assessment, and a $13 criminal penalty assessment. Although it's largely symbolic, the court's going to impose the maximum fine allowable for each case. It's ordered that you pay a $150,000 fine plus a 78% surcharge on each case. Those total fines on each case is $267,000. I know the law says that you can't financially benefit off your crimes, but in the event that somehow you did, those restitution amounts or those fine amounts are out there that can be paid. As to count 1 in CR 2021-001704, the court orders you to be sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after serving 25 calendar years. This sentence would run consecutively to the District Court of the 7th Judicial District of the State of Idaho in Fremont County, case number CR 22-21-1624. As to count 1 in CR 2022-001-242-001, it's ordered that you be sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after serving 25 calendar years. That sentence also, due to the number of victims you've created in the two cases, the immeasurable harm you've inflicted on many, and consecutive to the Idaho case in which you are currently serving a sentence, you're giving 0 days credit for time served. You have the right to appeal from the orders of the court and to have a lawyer represent you. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you. If instead you want to represent yourself in your appeal, you must file a written waiver no later than 30 days after the filing of your notice of appeal. If you cannot afford copies of the necessary records and transcripts, they would be provided for you at no cost. If you want to appeal, you must file a notice of appeal within 20 days of today, or you lose that right. If you want to petition for post-conviction of relief, you must file a notice within 90 days from today, or within 30 days after the appellate court issues a mandate affirming the judgment and sentence in your direct appeal, whichever is later, or you would lose that right as well. It's ordered remanding you to the Custody Department of Corrections effective today to carry out those sentences. We're at recess.
Lori, Brandon, we can't do that. Let's go. Everyone out now.
So I just wanted to get that Lori rotten prison in there.
Yes, I loved that. And but oh, that look as she's leaving the courtroom, I just want to smack it off her face.
Yeah, so she winked. That was Vicki Hoban, who is Tammy Daybell's aunt. And she was the one who said it. That was who Lori was winking at. And
why would she wink it at the aunt of someone that she terminated?
It's just her way of saying, you know, your words don't have any effect on me, whatever. I think it's her middle finger, you know.
Yeah,
Maybe she thought it was part of her fan club. I don't know if she knew who it was that said it. I don't know if she even knows who Vicky is. But I was glad she said it, but I was shocked at first. I was really shocked because I knew there was going to be some kind of a something. And when the court clerk came over and cleared us out, we got back to the family room and I almost wanted to say, all right, who got us kicked out? But I was glad.
I don't think the fat person has sung yet, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I do. I know what you're saying. Yeah. I just want to, I know you have to go, so I want to just get your thoughts about Judge Baresi's comments and the sentence.
Once again, it was all class to me. He berated her in a very dignified manner, let her hear the things that he's probably wanted to say since this all began. And he did it in a manner that was professional, dignified, and basically said, F you, bitch. But he did it in a way that only he could do it.
Right. Yeah. I was grateful that he called her out for misinterpreting scripture, but I think that proves my point that I was trying to make yesterday with Britt Hartley's video, that actually she's the one who made the point that Lori is a literal believer. She literally believes that the prison walls are going to come down and that people are going to walk free. And that's the danger in that kind of literal thinking. Really appreciated that he addressed each of the victims directly and addressed the fact that he did hear what they were saying. He understood them. He empathized with them, especially with Brandon. And then, said that he's going to remember Charles on his birthday. And I believe he genuinely will. I think this case has been like nothing else for him.
I think it was kind for him to thank the jury.
Yes.
And let them know how much he appreciates that and that he's not the one that made the decision.
Yes.
That the jury is the one who spoke for the people.
Yes. Thank you so much for bringing that up because, Lori has tried to, of course, make Judge Baresi the villain. She's tried to get him thrown off the case several times. She's appealed to 2 different judges and been denied because they've all basically said just because a judge doesn't sustain your objections doesn't mean that he has a bias against you. But she plays this poor me victim complex. So I'm glad you said that. I'm glad he said that. And also I did want to say they got through hundreds of jury questionnaires in a very short time, something that in Idaho took days to do. And they got through it in hours. And I was stunned. He said, we're a court of innovation. And I really believe that he honors the time of the jury. He honors the time of the people who are participating, the witnesses and everybody. And he also, I want to say, although people are going to not like hearing this, he also was respectful of Lori. He made very sure to treat her with kindness and respect. And he also many times gave her advice when he didn't have to. And he many times considered her motions more generously than he had to. And I know that he did that because he wanted her to have a fair trial. And that's part of a judge's job, is to make sure that there's no reason for a mistrial. And he did that masterfully. And I'm very, very grateful to Judge Baresi.
Yep.
Yeah.
If I ever committed a crime, I would be honored to have him be my judge.
If I ever committed a crime, I would be embarrassed to be in his courtroom. I would want to plead guilty just to say, I shouldn't be wasting your time here, Judge. I don't deserve to be in your presence. I absolutely loved the fact that the judge imposed the maximum of every possible thing that he could for her. He could have let the sentences run concurrently with her Idaho sentence. Nope. He could have let them run concurrently to each other. Nope. He could have given her credit for time served, which almost always happens. Nope. And also, Trina K said all in her 25 years of prosecuting, she has never seen a judge impose a fine. And not only did he impose a fine, he imposed that huge surcharge, which means that she owes $267,000 in restitution, which the judge did say it was symbolic because we know that she's never going to be able to pay that back. But if she should make any money from the proceeds of her scripture that she's writing, it will go to the victims first. And he said it would take an
if they're canonized.
Yeah, right. It would take an act of God for her to go free.
Yep. I loved that too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Which that was great for us to hear. For Lori, she was probably like, yep. And he is going to let me go free. So see ya.
Well, wouldn't that freak us out if it turns out that Christ went into the jail and leveled the walls of the jail and escorted Lori out of the area?
I mean, if that actually happened, I don't think I would want to be alive, because I don't want to live in a world where there's a God and a Jesus who rescues Lori instead of crushing her. And you know what? I don't know if you heard the song that I wrote for Jerry entitled "We Got the," but
yes, I did hear it. Mm-hmm.
It's on my Patreon. I made reference to the fact that the Jesus that I know has a millstone for you. And that's because I love the scripture in the Bible that says anybody who harms a child, it would be better for them to have a millstone around their neck and for them to be flung into the depths of the sea. And for those of you who don't know what a millstone is, it is the two huge stones that turn and rub together to grind wheat. And these stones are 5 feet tall, 5 feet wide, and they weigh thousands of pounds. And so, Lori, that is what your fate is. worse than having a millstone around your neck and drowned in the depths of the sea. The end.
I truly hope that Lori, one day, if she gets privileges to watch YouTube, watches this and hears that, because it's true and we're all hoping for the same thing. Tie that sucker around her neck and toss her in.
Yeah. I thank you so much for doing this with me. I feel lighter having unpacked all of that, all of the thoughts that I've had. And
I just want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. It's an honor for me to be the one that gets to, listen to this with you. And if it's cathartic for you in any way, yay, I say.
It is cathartic for me, and I needed to do it. I do feel like a weight has been lifted off of me. I am looking forward to a Lori-free future, minimally having to deal with her. Of course, she's never going to stop filing motions until they make her stop. But, other than a snarky video or two here and there, I'm really done deep diving. I made my own statement. It's on my channel. I think it helped me really wrap up the feelings that I had. It solidified everything for me, tied up all my loose ends. And I'm just grateful that we're here. Justice was served for all of these victims. And I just want to, again, give my best wishes going forward to Tammy's family, to Charles's family, to Brandon's family, and to Colby above everything else, Colby and his family. And I just am grateful that I have been able to shed some light on how we got to where we got, on how Lori became who she was. I know that I've helped people to unpack their own family trauma. And so the naysayers don't bother me, because I know that I have added something valuable to the conversation, and I know that I've helped people. And thank you to all of you who watched and subscribed and allowed me to have a voice through this process. I'm not going to stop talking, not ever, about my experiences, about my insights. And I'm going to be going forward covering some unsolved crimes. I feel like that's where I'm being called to go, is to do some research and investigation on crimes on families that have not yet received their justice. And that's what feels meaningful to me to do moving forward.
You know, as president of the Megan Connor fan club, I think I can speak on behalf of all of those watchers of yours of how much we all appreciate everything you've put into this, because it's been enlightening, probably a burden for you, but enlightening for all of us. So thank you for all you do, and can't wait to see the next project you tackle.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel, hit notifications. Every Tuesday is True Crime Tuesday, and more podcast episodes to come. So I'm not going anywhere.
And not just True Crime Tuesday, but Taco Tuesday. Be sure and get your taco on while you're watching Megan.
Thanks, Randy.
And with that, I'll say adieu.
Adieu to you. Good night.
Good night.